Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Wire2Wire Sports Podcast. I am your handsome host, the NFL genius, who is, by the way, back on track with a 3-0 week, back to 500, started from the bottom. Now we're here. Right next to me, I got Kent State's own, Cleveland's own, College Cutro.
Gene, I don't know what you did, but your luck rubbed off on me. We had another 3-0 week as well, so we're staying neck and neck in the NFL race. So we got to keep it rolling.
I'm EA Sports. It's in the game. Listen, I have 3 winners for you tonight that if they do not win, I will give you the rest of the season for free. You won't have to pay for it. You just have to listen Wednesday night, 7 p.m. If they don't win, I will listen. You get your money back. Whatever you invested into me for these picks, you get your money back. It's a guarantee. It's a lock. I go 3-0 this week. Stone cold lead pipe. I'm just throwing out generalizations. Nothing in the NFL is a lock. It's a joke. But we got a really fun and exciting show, and we're starting with some MLB playoffs, which, by the way, I'm watching right now. If you ever see me look over here, I'm watching the NFL playoffs, the MLB playoffs as we speak. I'm watching a little Twins Blue Jays action. I can't get enough of this stuff right now. Arizona, Milwaukee. I got to watch a little bit of replay of that. Corbin Carroll is an absolute animal. And then, of course, the Texas Rangers, who took out the Tampa Bay Rays. Already, we didn't even get a chance to preview the series. It's over. It's done. Could have another one over in like 20 minutes, maybe. We'll see. Twins look like they're taking care of business of the Toronto Blue Jays, and we got our Philadelphia Phillies. The only team from a fan of the show aspect that made the playoffs this year. I'm just kidding. How you feeling tonight, Gatro?
Hey, I feel good, and I know I'm sure there's people that are watching that are wondering, where's Shally, and he's on his way. Some technical difficulties here, but I feel good. I'm ready to talk MLB playoffs. I've been locked in, supposed to be working earlier, but I've been locked in all day. Definitely had some question marks. I'm sure we're going to talk about some of these games too, but I'm locked in.
I'm locked in that NFL too. I'm like fired up about NFL football. And speaking of Scholastic Shally, speaking of Uncle Shally, he's still fading in and out. We might not even want to put him on. Shally, what is going on with the internet? Where you're at? He's gone. He's gone again. He's gone again. I don't know if this is going to work for Shally. Shally was at a golf tournament. He won the whole tournament. You never know. I'm just guessing. He's a great golfer. But Shally's internet connection or whatever's going on is cutting him in and out. He's in a 5-star right now. He keeps going in and out. I don't know if it's going to work. But we got to get into the show. MLB action. Let's start talking about the MLB playoffs as they are stated. So let's start with the Texas Rangers, Tampa Bay Rays, which I correctly predicted the Texas Rangers would win the series. I thought the Texas Rangers were the better team. I didn't know if they would win in 2 or 3, but I thought too many things happened to the Tampa Bay Rays this season as far as losing players, losing pitchers, losing their shortstop. Just was too much. And the Texas Rangers have been on a dream run. It's a shame they couldn't hold on to that 2 seed because screw Houston, right?
Thanks.
But let's talk about the Texas Rangers, Tampa Bay Rays. Did you keep up with it today at work, Cottrell?
I did. So I was definitely locked in for it. And it was so, you could tell how deflating it was because there was a point in time where obviously, game was 0-0. And I think it was the 3rd or 4th inning. And Texas was just piling on runs. Like it was, 2 out runs getting put on the board. And, you could really tell it just sucked the life right out of that Tampa Bay team. And what's even more unfortunate about, Tampa Bay, obviously they've always had trouble filling that stadium, but it was absolutely sad to see, half the stadium basically be empty and your team is in the playoffs and they had such a great season, regardless of all the stuff that happened with injuries and, Franco and all that stuff. And, they basically just got deflated. Like, I think that first game kind of surprised even the Rays. And then that second game once those runs got put on the board in that I think third or fourth inning, you could tell the wheels just fell off.
Karam, that is incorrect. We can go back to my projections as the season started. I had the Rangers in the playoffs, and I had the Rangers winning this series. So not everyone didn't give the Rangers a chance. So I just want to make that very clear. I believe in the Texas Rangers. I always believed in them. I just think that their pitching staff will not hold up to get them to the World Series. And we'll talk about that further. But Tampa Bay doesn't deserve a playoff team. They don't deserve it with their fan base. That fan base did not show up for them. They didn't do a good job. And it looks like it's stable. We are adding him back. Scholastic Shalley, Uncle Shalley, Mr. William Shallcross, going with the government. How you feeling, brother?
I'm wonderful. How are you? Guys starting baseball talk without me? Rude.
Oh, the show must go on.
Show must go on. You are correct, sir.
So I have to understand, and we're talking about Texas versus Tampa Bay.
Okay.
Do you think, and it's just everyone say no, Karam said, Gene, I'm fine with that. The Rangers haven't lost in Tampa in the postseason. Great. I gave the Rangers a chance. I picked them. I picked them to win this series. I picked them to go to the playoffs. What is your thoughts on the Tampa Bay fan base not showing up for the team? You look at the difference between, real quick, the Philadelphia Phillies crowd last night and the Tampa Bay Rays crowd for their first two playoff games. I don't know.
You can take the fans out of right field from the Philly game last night, and that's more fans than showed up for Tampa Bay. Like, obviously not quite literally, but it's just insane for a team that played that well that their fans just don't show up.
God, Chow.
I think he's frozen.
He's frozen again. Hey, I Black Elmore is in the chat. I Black Elmore. Weekday early games suck. Yeah, I get it, but we're getting extra baseball. We're getting way more baseball than we expected. Hopefully, we're going to try Shalley one more time. Shalley, what are your thoughts on the Rays fans not showing up for the team?
I'm not surprised. I think it's a mixture of a lot of different things. I think it's a mixture of them being realistic of what was going to happen in this series with all the people they have out, between the Wander Franco debacle. They lost the guy that was head and shoulders above everybody else in the AL Cy Young race, and Shane McClanahan, who was just on, I think he was 10-1 when he got hurt. And then they lost Brandon Lowe the other day, a week before the playoffs started. He's their second or third best hitter. And on top of that, I think it's just normal Tampa Bay stuff. I hate to say it, but I mean, we've seen this before with that team. That's why free agents don't want to go there. That's why they have no money to sign free agents. The fans don't show up. The rumor is, they're working on a big deal with Tampa Bay to build a brand new stadium, which from the renderings is gorgeous. And if they build it, I think they're hoping on people, it's going to be an open air stadium. People are going to show up and, add revenue to that team and kind of put the juice back in, in that organization.
And there he goes again. I don't know what's going on where he's at, but Chris Hardy says the Texas-Baltimore series should actually be one of the best in the AL. Well, that's what we're looking at next round, Texas versus Baltimore. Control, what are your thoughts on Texas versus Baltimore?
I mean, I think that can definitely be a great series. I think the one thing to kind of really watch out for is that Baltimore team being as young as they are. I'd be very curious to see how they handle playing in postseason. Now, obviously, with it being the ALDS, it's going to be a 5-game series there. So if they feel like those lights are too bright to begin with, they don't really have much time to make up that ground. You even saw it last year with Seattle being in the playoffs and, those young kids kind of adjusting to that playoff baseball atmosphere. So I think it has all the makings to be the best series, in the AL. But I think the big thing will be how quickly will those young Baltimore kids get adjusted to playoff baseball.
So do you think that Max Scherzer makes a return for the Rangers at all?
I think he tries. I think at this point, Max realizes that he's on the wrong side of things in terms of age. So being with this Rangers team that's soaring as they are right now, I do think he is going to try and make that push. I think the better question would be, if Max isn't pitching how, you expect him to, is it even worth throwing him out there on the mound? Because you don't want to go in a situation that, you just throw him out there because, he's Max Scherzer. You lose the game, and that could be one of the pivotal games and be one of the reasons why you're out of the playoffs. So I think it's going to be more than just, is Max fighting to get out there? It's also going to be, does he give the Rangers the best chance to win?
3 hours ago, they had a really potential good lead through. Maybe you add him to the bullpen, make him like a 6th, 7th, 8th inning guy.
Yeah.
Let him pitch a couple days instead of having him start and really extend that arm.
Yep.
But he had a successful 3 hours ago. There was a progress in his rehab. So hopefully he returns.
I think that could be very interesting too, because essentially, if you throw him in the bullpen, you can kind of treat it like it's a extended rehab assignment. You throw him out there for a couple innings, you get the arm warm, and potentially if it gets down to 4th, maybe 5th game, if you absolutely need to throw him, you have that option. So I think that's a great option.
Yeah, I completely agree. It looks like Shally's coming in on his phone, which this might be the move right here. We're gonna try it one more time. It looks clear, bro. That's not even an iPhone 15 camera, is it?
No.
Are you on the phone?
Yeah, I'm on the phone.
I feel like the phone's gonna work. I feel like the phone service is gonna work. Little AirPod action. How you feeling? And he's gone again. I can't. I don't know what it is. I really feel like that there's something going wrong in life with Bill tonight. But we're gonna give it a little bit and see if he stays active for a while before we add him back. But let's talk about this Arizona Diamondbacks Milwaukee Brewers series. Control, you watched that series clean, right? You watched that game. You didn't even watch the Phillies. Like, you just watched the end of the Phillies. You were like, I'm locked into this other game. Tell us about the Diamondbacks. Tell us about Corbin Carroll. And tell us about what's going on with the Arizona Diamondbacks Milwaukee Brewers.
Yeah, so it's funny because I talk about young guys when I bring up Baltimore. Corbin Carroll had no care in the world about being a young guy and making his playoff debut. Obviously, he hit the home run. That game was incredible because it was just so back and forth. Every time that Arizona will put a run on the board, Milwaukee will respond and score again. And I think the one thing that made that game interesting is Corbin Burns was the guy who I feel like Milwaukee was really hoping could be the ace in the playoffs and start to rebound from the season that he had. And the first time through the lineup, he looked great. Then that second time, Arizona they got a hold of what he was throwing, and ultimately Milwaukee had to pull him. So I think that series is that's going to be a fun one, especially if they can keep up this pace. But I loved what I saw out of Arizona, making their return to the playoffs.
We'll find out what happens in game 2 tonight. I see some comments already in the chat talking about 3 home runs, not a good start, but I guess we'll find out. I haven't seen the game at all. I don't know. It doesn't look like it started. I think that was maybe last night's game, but okay. But let's move on to the next series, the Philadelphia Phillies, the Miami Marlins. Last night, Zach Wheeler did Zach Wheeler things. Zach Wheeler absolutely looked like a dominant ace on the mound. And not only did he look like a dominant ace on the mound, he gave the Philadelphia Phillies 6 2/3 of quality baseball. Jose Alvarado came in, got that last out in the 7th, and then we shut it down. 2 outs he got the first 2 outs in the 8th, and then Craig Kimbrell came in the 9th and shut it down. The Phillies had a seemingly non-eventful 4-1 playoff win. Your thoughts?
I think the one thing that made it eventful was really the stories that came out of it. Obviously, the game was never really in question. Craig Kimbrell's balk, does he just not like runners being behind him at second? Is that why he did that?
Yeah, he doesn't like Craig Kimbrell does not like seeing runners behind him at second base.
Okay.
So he dropped the ball because he didn't want him keep flashing in the back, going back and forth. So he just dropped the ball.
Yeah. So I saw that. I mean, that was one of the interesting things to see. And then the other one was Bryce Harper running through the stop sign, scoring the run. And I think that was interesting because, for a lot of people, they felt like the third base coach cost them a run earlier in the game. And so for Bryce Harper to just run through it and ultimately go down and score, I think that's kind of one of those smaller stories. Bryce obviously gets more leeway. He's a superstar, things like that. But I think that's just one of like the smaller stories that came out of it. Those were really my two biggest takeaways.
I mean, honestly, and I'll defer to Shally here. I think the Phillies third base coach was the worst player on the team last night. I mean, number one, you got to send Schwarber there, knowing that there's a lefty-lefty matchup coming up, and like I called this. I'm watching the game, right? I called this watching the baseball game. I said you got to take a shot here because lefty-lefty, especially with that sweeper pitch, it's a very easy thing for him to strike out a player.
Right. So
then you have 2 outs, and then you only have a 30% chance of getting that run in with a 300 hitter. A guy on deck would happen to be, after Harper was Castellanos last night, and he had a great night, but it's only a 30% chance for you to get that run in. So I'll defer to Shally here. Shally, could the Phillies third base coach have any worse of a night last night? I think that Dusty Wathan had a terrible night.
Wathan didn't have a good night. I mean, I think I agree with you, especially earlier in the game with Schwarber. I think you make the guy make the throw. And if you get him out at home, I think it's not the end of the world that early in the game. It's a little bit of a momentum swing over towards, their dugout. But again, I think you make him make the throw. And the second one with Harper, obviously, the whole play was in front of him. He knew he was going. He wasn't going to stop.
What a problem with Castellanos thing, too.
Yeah.
Like, there's nobody out there. That was the first out at home plate. You don't need to send him there.
I agree. I mean, I will say he's a very good third base coach. And it's very rare that he makes a mistake. I think it's more, I think once, you don't send Schwarber, you get a little gun shy and overcompensate, then you can get Castellanos thrown out, and then it's like, all right, like I don't want to make a mistake and have an even bigger spotlight, so he's going to hold Harper, and then it becomes a bigger thing because, like you said, Harper runs right through it and scores easily. So I just think he had a bad night. I think he'll be fine. He's been very good over there for them in the last couple of years. But yeah, I mean, your statement of him being the worst player is probably 100% accurate. He did not have a good night.
I need Aaron Nola. I need Aaron Nola tonight to give me 6 innings. Just give me 6 innings of 1 run or 2 run baseball, and I will be happy. I want to wrap it up tonight. I want to have Ranger for game 1 on the road at Atlanta. That'll be Ranger Strider. I want that, right? I don't want to have to use Ranger tomorrow. I don't want to have to use Ranger in the bullpen. I would love to see a night where you go Nola 6, and then you go Sir Anthony, Alvarado, Kimbrel, 7, 8, 9, and call it a night.
I agree. I mean, I think in a perfect world, that's what you would get. I just think Rob has a really it's weird, like how definitive he pulled Wheeler last night, and I think he pulled him at the right time. I think Wheeler kind of hit the wall, and his pitches were getting a little bit up. He wasn't in too much trouble, but you could see the difference in how hard they were hitting the ball, and they came out and got him right away. For some reason, he does not have that knack with Aaron Nola, and he leaves them in for 2 or 3 batters too long every single time. If Nola can go 6 innings tonight, 2 earned run or less, I think we're in real good shape, and I think we wrap it up tonight. But he just can't be afraid to pull the trigger with Nola and get him out of the game.
I don't even care if you pull him after 5. If you could pull him after 5, I will say this, right? And there's one thing I wasn't a fan of, and I get it. He's pitched great for us this season. I don't like the Jeff Hoffman move in the 8th inning with 2 outs, and I'll tell you why. I don't think people at home realize how close that foul ball was. The foul ball that like landed, it wasn't home run distance. But like when you watch that swing, he was a hair off of putting that ball in another dimension. And it was a hanging pitch. And I'll be honest with you, Hoffman really just left it up there. And I felt like, we got out of it, and which is great. I'm glad we got out of it. I'm glad he got the out, but I wasn't a fan of that. I want someone with overpowering stuff. Give me Sir Anthony there. If let Alvarado pitch another batter, I don't care what it is, but I don't like Hoffman there. What were your thoughts? I know you follow the Phillies. Like I've watched, seriously, if I'm being completely honest, I've kept up with 150 games out of 162, and I've watched maybe 85 of them. You've probably watched way more than I have. So like Hoffman there in the 8th, what is your thoughts?
Well, won't disagree with you on that one either. I know you said it in the chat when it came in. I was actually shocked with everybody being fresh that they went that route. Kind of like you said, you hit everything on the head. There's really not much. There's 3 or 4 other different options they could have went, and I would have been happier with all of them. Compared to what bringing him in there. I know they went righty, and they kind of Hoffman's off speed stuff is better than his fastball. Solari is a dead red guy, so I mean, obviously Alvarado is somebody you're probably still not going to square up because he throws so damn hard. I still don't know. I'd probably go Sir Anthony there if you want to go righty. If that's the matchup you want, which is obviously what Rob wanted. I'm going Sir Anthony there, and then obviously you still have Kimbrel behind him. So I agree with you 100%. That was not, with the lead they had, I'm not horribly against it, but at the same time, like you said, he sits back on that slider another 1/10 of a second. That is a completely different ball game last night because that ball ends up in the seats in left field.
100%. Let's do a little bit of preview, a little bit projection, right? Like I don't want to go too far ahead. Let's presumably say Texas already won. We don't have to worry about that. We're getting Texas, Baltimore. Let's presumably say, I don't know if the game's over yet, but let's presumably say Minnesota wins and Minnesota is playing Houston, which I think that's going to happen. Let's say Arizona holds on to their series and the Phillies hold on. Let's project because we're not going to really get a piece of this series next Wednesday. We'll be like game 4. So we got to project, right? So let's project. Crazier things have happened, but let's project. Texas, Baltimore has the feeling to me of 2 teams you really like seeing in the playoffs, right? Younger teams. I get it. Texas has some veterans there, but younger cores of teams that are in the postseason for the first time in a while making a run. So one of those teams is going to the ALCS. Who's it going to be? Control, start with you. Control's down on mute.
I'm going with the hot hand. I'm going with Texas here. I do think that for Baltimore, I know I mentioned it earlier. I love what they have and those young guys. I just think right now with the way Texas is playing and them coming off of this series, they smoked the ball against the Rays. I think there's going to be more of the same, especially going up against that Baltimore team where the strength of their team isn't necessarily pitching. So I think Texas will be able to go put runs up on the board, and I do think the playoff baseball, especially from playing from behind, is going to get to that Orioles team. So I think Texas ultimately wins it. I got Texas winning that series 3-1.
Well, Shally, Texas or Baltimore? I think Camden Yards is going to be rocking.
Camden Yards is going to be rocking on Saturday night. I don't think people realize you're talking Cal Ripken days. The last time they were kind of really good and in the playoffs and in the mix. I mean, that's how long these people have been waiting down there.
They're also a young, likable team that's going to get a full crowd. They
Correct.
will sell out. I'm not trying to be smart ass, but like these crowds, and you've seen, I sent you guys the average attendance, average cost per ticket in these games. And the Philadelphia Phillies are the only team that has like a real baseball following out of all 4 of these home teams. Baltimore will have that. When the Orioles are good, they are the talk of that town more than the Ravens, more than any team that's in Baltimore.
Correct.
Yeah, Shally. I'm sorry.
It's a bit as much success as the Ravens have had. That Baltimore will always be a baseball city, and that's because they've been there forever. The pitching worries me. It's worried me all year, but at the same time, they've gotten away with Kyle Gibson being the one, and a couple guys behind them. They all got ERAs in the low 4s, but they won 100 in some freaking baseball games. So, you know, I do like Texas's experience a little bit more. You know, they have guys that have been there. They have Corey Seager, Marcus Simeon's been there before, a couple other guys. Their pitching's banged up too. I mean, we you know, I don't think Scherzer's going to pitch. You know, we have Jordan Montgomery pitch a gem last night. Nathan Eovaldi is still kind of on the way of coming back. So I don't know what they have. I don't know what their depth looks like, you know, to what they're going to throw out. I'll tell you this. I'm kind of with Gene on this one. I'm obviously praying the Phillies win, and, you know, I'm pulling for the Phillies. But if there's any other team that I'm going to root for, it's going to be Baltimore. I'm going Baltimore. I think it goes 5. I think this is a great series. I will go Baltimore 3-2.
I am with you. I have exact same Baltimore 3-2. I think the home crowd really gets involved. I think Texas really got a gimme in the home crowd that they dealt with. And Tampa Bay, that didn't feel like a road game to them. 19,000 for a playoff game? Are you guys kidding me? Like, you don't deserve a playoff team. I hope the MLB umpires screw Tampa out of making the playoffs next year. It's a waste of time.
Felt like BP for them.
Yeah, it was terrible. That's a really bad night at the bank. A really bad night. I don't think we haven't had a crowd 19,000 at the bank all year. That's like a 2014 night at the bank, right?
I was going to say we don't have those nights at the bank anymore.
Random Tuesday night not even Tuesday 1 p.m. game that had to be made up for some reason.
Yeah, dude. Think of it this way, right? Think of it this way. The bank has averaged around 43,000 for playoffs with standing room. You could have doubled what was in that stadium, and it wouldn't have what was in the bank. Doubled. That is wild to me.
Especially for a team that played as well as they did this year. It's wild.
And then they think that getting a new stadium's going to help that. It's not. Didn't help Miami. Miami still doesn't sell.
I think Miami always stinks, though. So, I mean, I do think they're different. I think they're different situations. I mean, because you see how well the Buccaneers draw. Tampa Bay draws well when they get in the playoffs. That place sells out. I do think a lot of it has, like, that place is a dump, Gene. Like we've made fun of it all the time, but it is by far the worst stadium in Major League Baseball. And the fact that, like, they were allowed to build that, and, you know, and it got approved and everything else, like, there was a lot of mess ups along the way there. I do think the stadium will help. And Tampa Bay, notoriously, you know, they've been a good team the last decade. So, I mean, it's, you know, I think if they can get it built, you know, I think it'll depend on what's going on. But like I said, I think a lot of it had to do with, I think a lot of the fans also were like, we're going to lose. Like, you know, all the stuff, you know, all the players we have out, like, it's going to catch up to us. If I was a diehard Rays fan, I would have been there regardless. I mean, it's a baseball game. Anything can happen. But, you know, I think the fans were just like, meh, like, we're missing everything. Like, we're going to lose.
And what makes it worse is that they were giving away tickets basically at that price point.
Bro, I want to read this out to you guys. I just want all the fans to understand this. Wild card ticket price, average ticket price. Okay. For the Minneapolis, for the Twins Blue Jays, $7 a ticket. This is actually the lowest ticket price, not average ticket price. I apologize. For Milwaukee Brewers in Milwaukee, $22 a ticket was the lowest ticket price. For the Tampa Bay Rays, $33 a ticket was the lowest ticket price. For the Philadelphia Phillies in Citizens Bank Park, $199 was the lowest ticket price, and that's for standing room.
The only thing I'm going to say which affects some of that is the teams that were starting earlier in the day. So, I mean, you figure, I think the Twins Blue Jays game was the first game. So if they're starting 3:00 Eastern time, that's 2:00 Minnesota time. That's, you know, that's in the middle of the afternoon. Again, it wouldn't matter if it was Philly. It would have been sold out regardless. But some of those cities, like that's going to affect it. You know, it's the middle of the day, and, you know, it's not. I don't want to say it's an excuse, because it's a crappy excuse. Because, like I said, if it was here, it wouldn't have mattered. But
it factors in.
It does.
We call out of work. We're done. It is official. It is official. The Toronto Blue Jays have lost 2-0 to the Minnesota Twins. So let's talk about the Twins. Let's talk about Twins Astros. Astros in 3. Astros and the Twins can't take a game off Houston.
I think they take a game off Houston.
I think they can. Like, I think they could catch. Like, I don't think it'd be insane for them to catch a bad Verlander game the way he's looked,
especially the first inning. He's been terrible in the first inning.
I'm gonna go opposite of that. Actually, I don't disagree with what you're saying about Verlander, and he has been really bad at the beginning of games. That's kind of always been his thing, though. Yeah. If he gets out of the first inning, then he goes on cruise control sometimes.
Yep.
You look at Framber's last 6 starts; they have not been good. Terrible. So I think Minnesota's a scrappy team. I think they're a team that nobody is given any kind of respect to, any kind of chance. Astros are still kind of a little banged up. This is not your Astros team for 4 years ago. I'll tell you that. I think the Astros are still the better team. I think they're a more talented team. But I don't think it's crazy to think Minnesota steals a game somewhere at all.
Do you think there's a chance Minnesota wins the series?
Nah, see, I was going to say, I'm not going to say Houston's not going to advance, but I don't think Minnesota gets swept. I'll say that.
All right, Arizona versus the LA Dodgers. If that,
I'll go sweep for what it's worth, Gene. I'll take the 3-0. Houston.
I'm with you. Milwaukee's already up 1-0 in the Arizona series, so we'll see what happens there. I don't even know if we should project this. I think we should leave this alone because I have a real good feeling that series goes 3, and I don't want to project an Arizona Dodgers series if Milwaukee.
We got time. It's projected both ways.
Okay.
I'll project Arizona because I'll tell you, even if Milwaukee wins some night, I believe Arizona's pitching Gallen tonight. I believe. So if that's true, they still have Kelly in Game 3. I have no effing clue who Milwaukee's going to throw in Game 3.
Yeah, Gallen's pitching. Already allowed 2 runs in the first inning, and they're still first and third.
They were up 3-0 last night. You saw how that game.
You're right.
So
you're right.
Arizona's scrappy, man. They got a bunch of young kids that just fight. They're not going to roll over. I agree with Coachella. I think we can project it both ways.
Well, I think the Dodgers beat Arizona in 4. I think they beat Milwaukee in 3. I think that lineup's just too good. And if I'm being completely honest with you, the top of the rotation for both teams just aren't. I don't think they're enough to slow down the Dodgers lineup. I think the Dodgers have serious pitching issues, but that's not the point. I think in this series, I don't think you have to worry about it too much.
I don't disagree because I think the Dodgers are going to score 7 runs every freaking game because of that lineup. So I will go. I'm going to disagree a little bit. I think Arizona. They play Arizona. I think it goes 5 with the Dodgers winning. If they play Milwaukee, I'll go 4. I really want to say 3, but I'll go 4.
Control.
I got it 4 both ways. I think if they play Milwaukee, I do. Well, obviously, if they play Milwaukee, then that means the series went 3. Then they'll at some point you're going to get Corbin Burns probably against that Dodgers lineup. And again, he hasn't looked great, but I would expect him to win. If they won a game, it'd be probably the game that he pitched. So I think, Milwaukee could get 1 in that series. Then on the other side, I would like the Dodgers over the Diamondbacks in 4 as well. Not necessarily saying the Diamondbacks have any stellar pitching, but I just think they'd be able to outscore just because of the way that lineup hits. I think they'd be able to outscore LA for 1 game in that series.
Well, let's talk about the main event of the evening. If the Philadelphia Phillies win tonight, we get a rematch of last year's 5-game series versus Atlanta. And I'll go first here. I think the Atlanta Braves win the series. Let me be clear. I think they win it in 4. I think they win it 3-1. However, that is under the impression that Atlanta wins both games in Atlanta. I'll say this, though. Let me be clear. I don't want to be a hater to a Phillies fan. I want the Phillies to win. I'm obviously a Phillies fan. If the Philadelphia Phillies go out there and take one of those games in Atlanta, it's not going back to Atlanta. I'm telling you that right now. If the Phillies hit the opportunity to wrap this series up in 4 games and they win one of those games in Atlanta and it's 1-1 coming back to the bank, it's going to be deja vu for Atlanta coming into the bank. And I'm telling you right now, the Phillies win that series in 4. I'll make the prediction that the Phillies win the series in 4 or the Braves win the series in 4. I don't think there's any chance it goes 5. That's just my personal opinion. I think it all matters on who wins. If the Braves are up 2-0, I don't think there's any chance the Phillies are up 2-0. But if the Braves go up 2-0, I think the Phillies lose in 4. I think they'll win game 3 and then they'll lose game 4. But if it's split, I think the Phillies win in 4.
The only pushback that I would give you is that the way that Philly plays at home, I think that it's possible that they could win both games at home and ultimately send it back to Atlanta. I kind of think the same though, in regards to, the feelings. If the Phillies can steal one of those games in Atlanta, I don't think that Atlanta will win a game in Philadelphia. And that's ultimately what my prediction is going to be here. I think that the Phillies are going to take game 1. I think they win tonight. They're going to take game 1 in that next series. They're going to lose game 2, and then they're going to go back home and win the next 2 games. So I got the Phillies winning in 4. So take that.
You have exactly what I said would happen if the Phillies would win. If Ranger pitches game 1, and he's got ice water in his veins.
If Ranger pitches game 1 and they win game 1, Atlanta's in a shit ton of trouble.
Because Wheeler would end up pitching game.
Wheeler will pitch game 2. He'll be on normal rest to pitch game 2.
But would you want to pitch him game 2 though? I would almost.
Hold on. Isn't game 2 short rest? Wouldn't that be Sunday?
Sunday, so he pitched Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Oh yeah, so he pitched game 3.
Yeah, I was going to say I'd want to. You pitch him at home. I think you're going to get what you saw last night.
Wait, game 2 would be Saturday, right?
No, game 1 will be Saturday.
Okay, so then game 2 would be Sunday, which is normal rest for Wheeler.
Yeah,
because he pitched Tuesday. That's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 4 days rest.
He pitched. I was right. He pitched game 2.
So I would 100% pitch Nola at home. I think Nola is too.
Nola, you absolutely pitch it. I agree. You said something earlier, and I've obviously not seen any of this today because I've been on the course. Did the Braves announce their rotation for the next round?
No, but what is expected is Spencer Strider to pitch in game 1. I forget who their second, but Fried would be game 3.
That's interesting to me. That's interesting. Well, I mean, Fried's been the number 1 all year. I know he's having an issue with a blister on his finger, so giving him a couple extra days doesn't surprise me. Elder has been terrible in the second half. He had a great first half. His ERA is over 5 in the second half. They're going to want to pitch him at home. I also think Strider. I don't think they want Strider to pitch in this ballpark. And you can.
I wouldn't either. I wouldn't want him to pitch either in this ballpark.
The Braves fans will probably disagree. That dude has nightmares about that game. And he's come out and said it before. He's made stupid comments like he hates how loud playoff games get. He doesn't like it. I think the dude's soft, and I think if you come in here and pitch in game 3 and he starts getting lit up a little bit, I think it's a landslide.
I got it. Strider, Fried, Elder / bullpen game. That's what we're looking at. It looks like the Braves pitching rotation. It looks like Strider, Fried, Elder / bullpen game.
All right, so then we're gonna go Ranger, Wheeler. So that means Nola's gonna pitch against Elder game 3. So that has to be a win. And then our game 4 would be probably a bullpen for both games. So if Ranger or Zach could steal one down in Atlanta, I think it gets really interesting.
I agree with you 100%. That's exactly. But I think Atlanta wins both games in Atlanta. I think they're a much better roster. I think they're the better team. But that doesn't always win in playoff baseball. I just think they're better everywhere. I think they're better at hitting the ball at a ballpark. I think they're better at fielding. I think they're better at hitting ball for average. I think they're better at pitching. I think their bullpen's better. Like as a whole, I think they're better at every single thing on the diamond.
My one question.
Their bullpen 100% is not better than our bullpen.
My one question for you guys would be if Ranger goes out there, he wins game 1. Why not throw the bull? And I get it's normal rest for Wheeler in game 2. Why not throw the bullpen game out there game 2 instead of burning Wheeler? Because at that point, you're kind of. I'm not necessarily saying you're going to concede defeat there, but you're not expecting to go back home up 2-0.
I will tell you this:
because if Ranger feel their heart.
If Ranger wins game 1, that will be a serious consideration for them to do. To come back and go Wheeler game 3, Nola game 4. you're burning Max Fried for no reason. Strider can't come back that fast. And then you have Elder and whoever they have left. So I will tell you, depending on what happens in game one, I would think that would be a consideration.
I have a real feeling that Ranger Suarez is going to pitch a very good game one. I don't know if it leads to a win, but I love that this kid has no temperature. He just doesn't.
None.
He's none.
I think, listen, I think you're going to go out and you're going to get probably 4 or 5 really good innings from him. If the bullpen can lock it down, I think you have a chance to steal game one. I mean, Strider's a very good pitcher. He has very good stuff. They see him a lot though, and they do hit him well.
Yeah. They're fastball hitting. They're a dead red team. We struggle with sweepers. We struggle with sliders. We struggle with the breaking ball.
Yeah, correct.
What are your thoughts on Reese maybe possibly coming back next series?
It's tough. I mean, I think it's a moral boost.
I think it's just a pinch hitting type thing.
Yeah, but you have to. Here's the difference. In a 3-game series, like they left Michael Lorenzen off the roster.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's been horrible down the stretch, but you're not going to use as many players in a 3-game series as you do in a 5-game series. Guys like him are probably going to get put back on the 25-man roster because you need more arms, just in case you get the blowout game. Like you got to throw somebody out there to throw 4 innings, no matter what the hell happens.
Yeah.
Like he's one, so it gets interesting. I've seen him hit. He's obviously bulked up a lot. He looks huge. I mean, he's killing the ball. It's BP, that being said. But if you watch him running, he's still very ginger. Like he's not – the last thing you want is to put him out there and have something happen or have him hit the ball in the gap and, try to push it and re-injure the knee. But that place will go nuts, though. I mean, if they put him on the roster and he pitch hits in a big spot, that place will go bonkers. So I mean, I would say this, I'm not against it, but it would have to make sense for me, the rest of the roster, the way it's constructed, and make sure they have enough arms in the bullpen and stuff like that. And in that case, I just don't know who you take off either. That's the other problem.
I'll tell you what, and I mean this when I say this, and Cottrell, I don't know how familiar you are with either one of these kids, but and this might just be a me thing, a Phillies thing. I love Christian Pache and Johan Rojas. I think they've been I don't know, man. They're just pleasant surprises. Great defenders, awesome speed on the bases, contact line drive hitters. Rojas had another RBI last night. And if Castellanos is getting his swing back, he smoked the ball last night. The Phillies lineup is so dangerous. And that's what gives me a lot of hope.
The Phillies lineup is one of the few lineups in the league, along with, Houston, if they're healthy, and the Dodgers, that can kind of go bang for bang with Atlanta. It's starting pitching overall I would say this, and I've said this, I've been consistent with it. Atlanta's starting pitching depth is better than the Phillies. Zach Wheeler is the best pitcher out of either team. You have to get something out of Nola. And if Ranger can steal you a game, I think you have a great shot to win the series.
I think Chris Sanchez can get you 5 innings. He's pitched great this year. I don't understand what the hate on Chris Sanchez is.
It's not hate. I think it's a trust thing. It's like you said, Ranger has a closeout in an NLCS, on short rest, and like you said, came in and did it looking like a gangster. Like Sanchez doesn't have that yet.
I'm not saying over Sanchez. I'm just saying if you started him game 4 in a bullpen game, or you start him game 2 in a bullpen game, he's not somebody that he gives you 5 strong almost every start, man. Like he's just.
I agree. I'm telling you right now, that's probably who's going to be the 4th starter. Or you do some kind of combo, like you said. You get Sanchez through the lineup twice, and if he only gives up 1 runner or something like that, you bring in Taijuan behind him and switch the look and everything about it and see what happens.
Completely.
I think they have a lot of moves. I think both teams do. I think it's going to be a great series. I think it's going to be a little bit higher scoring than people think. I think they hear Wheeler, Nola, Strider, Max Fried, all these guys. These lineups hit, man. I mean, it's go time. I think it's it has the potential to be a great series. I really believe that. I think they're the two best teams in the National League, and then that's including the Dodgers. I like the Dodgers lineup. I'll take the Phillies defensive pitching all day over the Dodgers. I don't think it's even close.
Well, let's get into the NFL. We got to wrap up with MLB. We got NFL, NCAA, and then we're going to hop off and watch the end of that Phillies game. Understood that you guys will keep us updated in the chat, and we appreciate that. But let's get into some NFL talk. We got a couple overreactions, underreactions. Well, is it an overreaction is what we're going to call it, but a couple things there. Couple things that we're going to talk about is previewing games, and then we'll get into our pick'em segment, which obviously has gone pretty well for us. As a group, we're above 500, which is very good in pro football. Now, I promise you this. I've really buckled down. And I said this earlier in the show, and I'll say it again. If I don't go 3-0 this week, the rest of the card this year is free. You don't have to pay anything. Tune in Wire2Wire, 7:30 was when we're getting in the pick'em section normally. But 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. every Wednesday night, Eastern Standard Time. But let's talk about overreactions. I got a few for you guys. I'm going to ask you guys, and then I'm going to give my thoughts on it afterwards. Overreaction. Is this an overreaction? The San Francisco 49ers are the best team in the NFC.
I don't think it's an overreaction in that. I mean, I think you can make a case that it's true. I don't necessarily think they're better than the Eagles. I think they're playing better than the Eagles a little bit right now.
Okay.
They're dominating teams. They look great. Christian McCaffrey might score 40 touchdowns this year. I think they just came out of the gate a little bit hotter than the Eagles. That being said, the Eagles are 4-0. Eagles are defending champs, so I'm not just going to hand the crown to the 49ers this early in the year.
I'd say not an overreaction. I think at this point, you want to talk about like right now at this point in the season, I would say the 49ers almost have been flawless every game, up until this point. Not saying the Eagles have looked like bad or anything like that, but I do think there are more question marks. And again, we kind of expect that to be the case with the Eagles, especially at this point in the year. But I think as it stands right now, I don't know how you can't say the 49ers are the best team in the NFC.
Okay, another overreaction, and this could be an overreaction for you guys. I don't think it's an overreaction. I think the 49ers right now are the best team in the NFL. I'll just say that. I don't think it's an overreaction, though. I think that's people can say that. Here's an overreaction question, and I might think this is an overreaction. I might not. The Kansas City Chiefs are no longer the top dog in the AFC because their wide receiver, the Jets, put out the blueprint on how to slow down and stop the Chiefs.
I think that's very much an overreaction. You talk about, them putting out the blueprint. It took, Patrick Mahomes having 2 turnovers and, him really not looking like himself pretty much the entire game. They still lost the game. You talk about, it being a questionable, very questionable holding call on Sauce Gardner at the end, but Chiefs still won that football game. You even saw it last year. They lost the game to the Colts. They had no business losing earlier on in the year, and they were just fine throughout the rest of the season. So I just think you got to pump the brakes here a little bit. And, if anything, the emergence of Isaiah Pacheco in that game tells me maybe they won't have to rely as heavily on Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, he's the heart and soul of that team, but if they can get the run game going, that takes more of the stress off Pat, and it makes the Chiefs more two-dimensional.
So I'm not going to say it's a full overreaction, and to a little bit, I don't want to say the game plan's out or the blueprint's out there. I agree. I think Mahomes had a little bit of a bad game. Not every team also has Sauce Gardner either. So it's, I think that factors in. I'll say this, though, and I'll agree with Gene in this aspect. I think the gap between Kansas City and everybody else is smaller now than it's ever been. I think I don't think they're the runaway favorites to come out of the AFC this year. And I think they're going through a little bit of growing pains without Eric Bieniemy being there. I know we all agree. We all think that Andy Reid called all the plays. I don't think anybody thinks that's true. And I think the offensive game plan has changed a little bit because Bieniemy's not there anymore. So, I think they're going through a little bit of growing pains with that. And I also think a lot of their teams have just gotten better, and Kansas City is hurting without the wide receivers that they're used to having.
Overreaction or not overreaction? CJ Stroud is the best young quarterback we've seen in the last 10 years.
Oh my goodness. I'm gonna go
Not where I thought you were going with that.
I'm gonna go overreaction. Last
Let
10
me
years.
explain. He's played 3 games. He's thrown over, or 4 games. He's thrown over 300 yards. He has the most yards out of any rookie quarterback outside Cam Newton. He has no interceptions this year, 0. So I'm asking, is he the best rookie quarterback we've seen in the last 10 years? I'm not saying is he going to have the best career. Is he going to be better than Patrick Mahomes? Is he going to be better? Patrick Mahomes didn't play his rookie year. I'm asking, is he the best rookie quarterback we've seen in the last 10 years?
I'm still gonna have to probably side with no. I mean, it's great what he's doing down there, and I'm a CJ guy. Like I said, coming in, I thought he would be the best quarterback in the class. I think it's kind of interesting, and I think this is going to start to change throughout the year. He's dicing up man coverage right now. A lot of teams are throwing a lot of man coverage at him. I saw in the preseason he was struggling to read zone, so I don't know why more teams aren't throwing more zone at him, make him think a little bit more, and make you pick him apart, in finding the right spot, throw the ball in the zone. But to his credit, what he's doing right now is absolutely incredible. But I'm going to say that's an overreaction the last 10 years.
Okay.
I'm going to say it's a slight one, and that's not the question I thought you were going to ask, because I was about to agree with you, but I thought you were going to ask if he's the best Ohio State quarterback to come out, and I would have wholeheartedly agreed with that. But it is, listen, after he didn't have a great week 1, but it wasn't terrible, and since then, he hasn't played like a rookie at all. I mean, he is whatever they're, D'Amico and all those guys are coaching there. He's dialed in right now, man. He's making Nico Collins look like a wide receiver 1, and I've always been a big Nico guy, but he's got a great connection with him. And I think the scary part, honestly, is they're really not running the ball well yet. Damian Pierce really hasn't taken off yet. If that happens, and you start running serious play action against some of these defenses, CJ Stroud is. I mean, if you're a Texas fan, I mean, you have to be excited for that potential and the way he's looked so far. I think he's going to run away.
He had a great press conference talking about Houston fans taking pride in wearing that Houston Texans logo. We're not going to be a joke. And, I work every day to make sure you guys can take pride in wearing. I love that. I love that press conference. Love
the one cool thing with that too is that he's always been that guy. Obviously, it's tougher when you're losing those big games. Like he lost, obviously 2 games to Michigan while he was at Ohio State, but he was still that guy in those press conferences. So it's cool to see him still be that guy and bring that.
We're not going that far.
What do you mean?
He blamed the first year. He's like, oh, well, like half the team had the flu and like all like
he wasn't.
The second year, I will legit come out and be like he handled himself like a man after we beat you guys in Ohio State. The first year, I'm not. He's not getting a pass on that one.
If you say so.
I think it's a slight overreaction, but I understand where it's coming from. But here's the next one. Bryce Young is the 3rd best quarterback of the top 3 taking and is a bust.
I mean, it's an overreaction because he's played 3 games. I mean, he's with a guy that can develop quarterbacks and can develop an offense. They really don't have weapons. I mean, Adam Thielen's their best wide receiver right now. I'm not gonna, I understand the rush to do this because CJ Stroud has looked incredible, but I'm not piling dirt on Bryce Young yet. I mean, there's too small of a sample size, and he just doesn't have a team around him either.
You talk about it being that early in the season. He's already missed 1 game because of an injury. Offensive line hasn't held up as well as they were hoping for it to. And you also mentioned that traded away DJ Moore this offseason, and Adam Thielen's their number one receiver. So I think you got to put them in a position to be more successful. Yeah, you could see what CJ Stroud's doing in Houston, and you could talk about that receiving core and things like that. But you also got to realize that every situation isn't tailored the exact same. Like you talk about the Panthers, that division that they're in is as bad as we all kind of thought it was going to be. They still have defenses that play well in that division. So it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve, and he just has to find who his weapons are going to be. I think Bryce Young will be fine. Very much an overreaction at this point.
I completely agree with you guys. I have two more, okay? Two more to go into.
Good one. All right.
Matt Eberflus is the worst coach in the NFL.
It's I mean,
facts.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an overreaction. I mean, because even if you don't agree with it, even if you think he's like there's two guys worse than him, there could still be a very compelling, strong case to make against him. So you can't call it an overreaction, because I think most people would have him as the worst coach, and if he's not, he's like 30 or 31. So he's awful. It's Chicago's a mess, dude. We talked about it last week. There's so many like places to put blame, but at the end of the day, he looks very overwhelmed to me. I'll say that. I think overwhelmed is the right word. I think he's in a little over his head, and this is not the start Chicago, I think, thought they were going to have. I think he was going to have a little bit of breathing room, and now they're what? Are they 0-4? They 1-3.
0-4. They have won a game.
0-4, and the animals are at the gates already. So it's going to be a long couple months for that man, for sure.
I think the one kind of interesting thing to keep an eye on in Chicago is obviously right now they have the number 1 and the number 2 pick. I think when you know that Eberflus is coaching there, he's almost like guaranteeing that you're going to have a top 5 pick. At what point does he get fired, and do they hold on to him so that he, it sort of ensures that they have those picks? You saw it, last year, a couple years ago, when Lovie Smith was that guy, and he ultimately ended up winning his last game, screwed Houston out of that number 1 overall pick. So I think it's going to be interesting for Chicago. Do they pull the plug early? If it's like after this week, they get blown out by the Commanders Thursday night, are they like, hey, we're done with Eberflus? Or do they hold it out for the entire season just to make sure they get that bad pick and, top pick, and then bring in a new coach to kind of, we talked about it last week, marry your coach and your quarterback?
I don't think it's an overreaction at all. I think the Chicago Bears have the worst organization in the NFL. I think the head coach is the worst head coaching hire in the last 50 years outside of Urban Meyer. I think Matt Eberflus was a terrible, underqualified coach that should have never got the job to begin with. I don't think it's no reaction. You guys know I'm not a Matt Eberflus fan. I think that Cliff Kingsbury dances circles around this man coaching-wise. So
finally got Gene to say something good about Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah.
It only took Matt Eberflus being a terrible coach.
Sure.
Hey, I'll tell you this. Go ask the Bears fans if they would take Lovie Smith back now. I bet you they all say yes.
You are correct.
That man got railroaded.
I completely agree with you. And the last one, and this might be the biggest overreaction or not, Bill Belichick is finished.
This is a good one, because they got it. Like, I watched this on ESPN today, and they kind of delved into this territory, and it was a heated discussion. I'll say this: the numbers are starting to tilt that he is. You look at his numbers since Tom Brady's gone; he's under 500 now. And Damian Woody, to me, nailed this perfectly on the head. He doesn't know how to build a team anymore with Brady not there. Mac Jones is never going to be Tom Brady. And I don't know if anybody really thought that was going to be the case, but that kid needs weapons to succeed. I think he could still be a nice quarterback, but he's not going to win games with 2-star tight ends and a running game. That's not going to work in today's NFL. I think his defense is still good. He can still coach defense, obviously, and he's very good at drafting talent there. I just think offensively, I think the game's really passed him by, and I think that's crazy to say. I still think he's one of the best to ever do it, if he's not the best. But I think you make a really good argument that's trending that way. That he's he's kind of just on his way out. Like it's done.
Control.
I'm going to say not an overreaction for one reason. I do think that they, I don't want to say they made a mistake, but it is criminal to believe that Mac Jones will be able to fill the shoes of Tom Brady. And obviously, to fill the shoes of Tom Brady, he won 6 rings there. I don't think Mac Jones is that quarterback that's going to go out there and necessarily win you football game. I think the Patriots offense is just lacking big time players. Their defense, he doesn't care who he throws out there. You got guys, Jack Jones probably had never heard of him before he hopped on the scene in New England, and Bill Belichick was making plays for him. They just went out and got J.C. Jackson. Matthew Judon had a resurgence being on that Patriots defensive line and getting all these numbers in the sack game. So I like what Bill is doing defensively. I just think offensively they have to figure something out. Can Bill O'Brien be that guy to make the offense, more up to date and, bring that creativity that Bill ultimately didn't have when he had Tom and that just basic 2 tight end system? I think that's possible, but to get to that next level, you got to bring in a quarterback. And I think this upcoming draft class, 2024 class, is absolutely loaded with quarterbacks. And I think you'd be able to find a difference maker in that class. If Bill retires, before one of these quarterbacks, gets drafted, if this is his last year, I get it. He has nothing left to prove. But I think if he can go out there and get one of these star quarterbacks in college right now, and then ultimately, make some moves in free
How many
agency
more
or
years
make a
does he
trade.
have, Cottrell? You're talking about another 3-year rebuild with a young quarterback.
But see, I don't think it necessarily has to be a full like 3 years. Like if you bring
Which
in
quarterbacks coming in that they can get? That I'm not talking about Caleb. They're not going to Caleb Williams. What quarterback that's coming? What quarterback that's coming in that they can get is not going to be at least a 2-year rebuild, which means this year and 2 more.
I think if you can get, depends on where Quinn's status is at. I think Quinn could be a guy that comes in and make a difference. Not saying he wins you a Super Bowl right away, but I just think his playmaking ability, it takes you a step up from where Mac Jones was at.
I'm going to go back to what I told you before, and it still reigns true. There's not a lot of warm weather quarterbacks that can go to cold weather places and succeed. It doesn't happen much. And you're talking about taking a kid from Texas and bringing him up to New England, and the ball spins differently. With that wind, with that cold, that frigid weather, it doesn't happen. Look at some of the successful quarterbacks. Tom Brady, Michigan, New England. Some of the successful quarterbacks that have played in these type of systems. Look at it. Just look at it. Ben Roethlisberger, Miami of Ohio, over to Pittsburgh. It happens. A lot of these elite quarterbacks, there's only like a handful of ones. Josh Allen, Wyoming, Buffalo. There's only a handful, and you can point to Aaron Rodgers as one, Cal to Green Bay, but there's not many of them.
Eli Manning would be one that's kind of on the fence there. He wasn't a great quarterback, but
and I don't consider, and it sounds silly, right? I guess New York would be considered a cold weather city to play in. I just don't consider it as cold of a weather city as like a Buffalo or a New England,
or
even a Pittsburgh. For whatever reason, I think the coast is just warmer. I feel like Pittsburgh, you play in more frigid temperatures.
It is, and they get the weather off the lakes. So yeah, it's different. They have a different climate than we do.
But just an opinion. We'll see. We got to preview some games. We only have 2 games to preview this week. Simple, easy week, but they're 2 really big games. And I'm picking one of them, so I can't really give you a full in-depth analysis. But can I ask you guys a question? I just want to – where's the Jacksonville-Buffalo game being played, Bill?
Is it not in Buffalo?
It's in London.
It's in London. And I think –
they're in London 2 weeks in a row.
Yes, they stayed there. And I think it's very deceiving what they're doing as far as this game. And I think a lot of people think the same way you do. Jacksonville at Buffalo. And they see the 5.5-point spread. Okay, you got to go up to Orchard Park in Buffalo. Buffalo is a home team this week in London. I think that plays a huge role in it. Letdown game for Buffalo after playing a huge divisional game and destroying Miami. And then they have to travel off of a emotional high to London,
where Jacksonville's already got adjusted to the time zone and got their routine and knows what it's like to be on the field. And
Buffalo's traveling out Friday. They're traveling out Friday. I think that's interesting. I always like when teams travel out there Tuesday and practice during the week.
Yep.
But they're traveling Friday.
There's two trains of thought there. It's stay home as long as you can, kind of get people on a plane, get them there, unload them, be like, play the game, get back on, and try to take like the adjustment mental part out of it. And it works for some teams. Other teams, like you said, like to get there Tuesday, have a night's rest, practice where they're going to play, all that good stuff.
Get to go see the city.
It's really dependent upon the head coach usually and what they think, how the team's going to react.
I personally don't like that. I would like them to get in earlier, go in on Tuesday, maybe go in on Wednesday, give those guys a chance to practice and just not even just practice, but get adjusted to what that schedule is going to be like for you. So you hear, we saw it last week. It was a 9:30 kick. If you were on Easter time, like how Buffalo would be, it was 9:30 kick. So give those guys' bodies a chance to get adjusted to that time frame. Give them a chance to play on that field. And then I also think, with them being over there, I feel like there's going to be a lot of intrigue about, I'm sure a lot of those guys, their first time being in London. So I just think it would have been smarter to let those guys go a little bit earlier.
I will say this. They are ex-Buffalo Bills player. I forget who it was. Guy's got to help me, but he's Bills Mafia traveling to London. They're doing a takeover over there. Andre Reed is hosting a Bills Mafia takeover. They flooded the planes to London. There's going to be a ton of Buffalo Bills fans out there. But how do you guys see the game going? Jacksonville, Buffalo, Cottrell, break down the game for me.
So I think this game will be interesting. I think right now Buffalo is considered, they're riding high. They took down Miami and made them look, rather pedestrian back down to earth. And I think for Jacksonville, they didn't look great against Atlanta, but they dominated, but they didn't look great, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Desmond Ridder stinks. I've told you this multiple times. He's terrible.
Absolutely.
And I don't mean to say this to be rude, because he's terrible.
He does. He is. For sure is. That's why the last 2 weeks, we've picked against them, and those have been 2 wins on our resume. So
maybe we'll do it a third straight week. You got Houston beating them? You never know. We'll see. But we'll get into that later. He slowly raised his hand.
I got Jacksonville. I got Jacksonville winning this game. I do think that they will be prepared for this game, and I also think that the way their defense is playing, I think they're going to be able to get after Josh Allen a little bit, get him off of his spots, and just force him to freestyle and make some plays on the move. Can Josh Allen do that? Absolutely. But I do think once you get into that territory, that's when Josh Allen starts to potentially make some mistakes as well. So I can see Jacksonville getting a turnover off of Josh Allen. And I think this week Jacksonville is going to get back to running the football effectively. I think this is going to be a big Travis Etienne game. And, ultimately, I think this game's close. I see it being a little bit lower scoring. I say like 21-17 or something in that ballpark.
Okay. Shally, before you go, I just want to say this, right? And I don't mean to I think that this Buffalo team is, and I'm kind of hinting to my pick. I kind of did it already, is ripe for the picking. I feel so bad for Tre'Davious White with the torn Achilles. You're also running into, and it doesn't look like Micah Hyde's going to play. So that's 2/4 of their secondary. They also have a few limited participants in their backup cornerback role. So there's a lot of, they have major secondary issues this week going into London. And they're ripe for the picking, in my opinion. They're ripe for the picking. Buffalo Bill, what do you got?
I don't disagree with anything you said. I think they're banged up. I think the one thing is that Von Miller looked like he practiced all week. They think he might have a shot to play. So, losing obviously Tre'Davious White is huge. You do feel bad for the kid. The kid just can't buy a break at this point. ACL, now Achilles. Micah Hyde, I feel like him and Jordan Poyer, one of the two of them is always hurt. So I think they're kind of used to not playing with both of them. And honestly, man, I thought it makes sense now that this game's in London, because when I first saw the spread, I thought 5.5 was nuts. I thought it would have been higher than that. Jacksonville still looks very clunky to me. They're not real fluid on offense, which I didn't think was going to be an issue. They really can't get Calvin Ridley going. He had a great first week. He's been a dud kind of after that. Travis Etienne, they can't get him going. I mean, he's catching the ball out of the backfield, but they can't run the ball consistently with him. I think Jacksonville, I think they obviously have a shot to win the game. I think it's a close game. I do agree with Cottrell. That was the one thing that I just first gut impression. I thought this game was going to be a little bit lower scoring than people think it was going to. I still think Buffalo wins. I think they finally hit their stride last week offensively against a very good Miami team. Stephon Diggs finally scored, had a huge game. Looks like everybody is buddy again, and everybody's on the same page. So I will go Buffalo. I don't think Buffalo covers. I'm not picking this game, but I don't think Buffalo covers, but I think it's a little bit of a lower scoring game. I'll go like 23-20. I kind of see it, very similar to Cottrell.
Okay, well, the next one that we got to go into is, and I can't give a breakdown because I'll give a breakdown during my pick 'em. The next one we're going into is the game of the week, Sunday Night Football. The Dallas Cowboys are headed into San Francisco to take on the 49ers. This is a game of the year, possibly. This is a great game. This is the first and third best teams in the NFC. These are top 5 teams in the entire league that are playing each other on Sunday Night Football in San Francisco. I'm going to make a bold prediction, and I will start. I think the Dallas Cowboys go into San Francisco and they beat the 49ers on Sunday Night Football. Weird things happen in primetime. Weird things happen on Sunday night. If Dak Prescott doesn't throw 2 awful, and I mean awful, interceptions in that NFC divisional round, I thought Dallas would have beat them then. I think Dallas's defense is too much, and I think Dallas beats San Fran. I think that Dallas is way more equipped to handle San Fran's defense than the other way around. It looks like Dallas is going to have all their offensive linemen back for the football game, and they have had this game circled on their calendar. The way San Fran has Philadelphia circled, Dallas has San Fran circled. I think this is a game where you're going to hear a lot of the cockroaches come out. A lot of the Cowboys fans come out from underneath the bed, underneath your couch, underneath the sewers, and they're going to come out and they're going to be chirping because I think the Cowboys win this game outright. I'll take the Cowboys in this one in a close game, 27-23.
I'm going to go against you on this one, man.
It's fair. I don't mind. I hope you're right.
I think
you hope it's a draw.
I hate both teams, but I will definitely always hate the Cowboys more than I hate the 49ers.
I do agree with you that Dallas is one of the few defenses in the league that is equipped to, at least stay in front of San Fran's offense and all the weapons they have with C-Mac, Debo. Brandon Ayuk is off to another great start. But I also think, listen, as much as, well, not me, but as much as you hate Brock Purdy, I think this is going to be another game where it's going to become definitively clear what the issue with the Dallas Cowboys is. And the name of that man is Dak Prescott. He is not going to win a big game when he has to throw the football, and I think that's what San Francisco is going to make him do. I think he'll complete a bunch of short, over-the-middle, kind of dink and dunk passes. He is not going to be able to throw the ball downfield with any kind of effectiveness. I think he throws at least one really bad pick. I like San Fran's defense, at home more than I like Dallas's. I agree it's a close game. I'm picking it, so I'm not going to give my score prediction, but I think San Francisco wins the football game. I think they're the better team, and I think they're playing better right now. And I don't think Dak's playing with a lot of confidence right now.
So I'm gonna lean Bill's direction here. I got the San Francisco 49ers winning this football game. I do think it's gonna come down to Dak Prescott. I think you're gonna be in a situation, and it's gonna be like deja vu, where Dak Prescott, they're gonna be down 4, maybe 5 points. Dak Prescott's gonna have to go lead a drive to score a touchdown and win them the football game. And I just don't think that's gonna happen. Talk about how great that Cowboys team is. What are they great at? Can they stop the run? Absolutely. They are great all around. But I think they're better in terms of, protecting against the pass. And I think with this 49ers team, you're going to see a lot of runs. You're going to obviously, Shanahan loves running the football. And I think they're going to make those linebackers move. And I think when you have guys like Dexter Lawrence and Michael Parsons that aren't able to just pin their ears back and just go get after the quarterback, especially with Trevon Diggs not being there, the Cowboys probably aren't going to run as much man coverage as they normally like to in this situation. I think San Francisco is going to be in a position to win this football game. So I think Dak Prescott turns the ball over in this one. I got Nick Bosa having more sacks than Micah Parsons in this one as well. And ultimately, I like San Francisco to win the football game.
All righty. Let's get into pick 'em, gentlemen. And I got some 3 doozies. So let's put the numbers up there. Shall you're allowed to
we're
pick
coming.
What?
We're coming, Shally.
I knew the runs were coming. I said it last week. I hope they did. I had a bad week last week, but I know you guys both had great weeks. So again, it's good for the show. As soon as everybody's over, like Gene said, everybody's over 50% or 500, but those percentages keep going up. It's just better for all of us. So,
well, give us the order then, brother.
I got to go last because obviously with me being on my phone, I have to go in and check the 3 games that I wrote down to pick. So, which order did we go last?
Me control you.
All right, we're gonna keep that then. So you guys stay hot. We'll keep everything copacetic here.
Copacetic. I got a couple weird ones, right? Well, I got one really weird one, and then I'll get into the other one. All right, so first one on the docket. I'll take the under 43 in Denver versus New York. Zach Wilson is still Zach Wilson. Do not let Sunday Night Football fool you. I think Zach Wilson and the New York Jets are not going to be able to move the ball, but I also think that Jets defense is going to be hungry and ferocious, slowing down Denver, especially with the comments made by Sean Payton and to Nathaniel Hackett. I think that's a 19-16 ball game. I don't think you have to sweat the 43. I think the only reason the number is so high is because Denver gave up so many points. But Zach Wilson's still Zach Wilson. Let's just be clear about that. So I have the under 43 in that ball game. Second game on the docket. I got the Jacksonville Jaguars plus 5.5 over the Buffalo Bills. I'll take the 5.5 points. I think Jacksonville wins the game outright. They're staying in London. Emotional letdown for Buffalo. I love Jacksonville in this spot. I think Jacksonville wins the game. I think they win it outright. And the 5.5 is just a little kicker for you. And the last game on the docket, major upset alert. I don't know if they'll win the game, but I think they cover. Give me the Minnesota Vikings plus 4 at home versus the Kansas City Chiefs. I think Minnesota can move the football. I think they'll be able to move the football well at home. I think they'll be able to score. And I think Patrick Mahomes, and I just an opinion, I think Patrick Mahomes is going to still look a little bit off. I think there's no wide receivers over there, and you got to rely on Travis Kelce. Teams are doing different things to bracket him, playing man-to-man coverage on the outside versus those receivers, and saying, beat me, and none of them can. I think it's a good Isaiah Pacheco game. I think it's a rather high-scoring game. I think it's the highest over-under of the week. But I'll take the Vikings plus 4 at home versus Kansas City Chiefs.
So my first game, I am going directly against Gene. I like the Chiefs minus 4 at the Vikings, and it's for a lot of the reasons why we saw last Sunday night. I think that was the game that teams really need to beat a Patrick Mahomes led team. He had 2 turnovers in that one. It should have been 3. And you look at that Minnesota Vikings defense. They don't have anyone that can cover. Do I like Byron Murphy? Yes. Is Brian Flores doing a great job? Yes. But they don't have guys that can consistently go out there and make plays. So I think this is a week for that Kansas City Chiefs team, honestly, to, get put on the map and really realize who's going to be head and shoulders that number 1 receiver. So I think you're going to have a big bounce back week from Patrick Mahomes. I think he's going to pick apart that Minnesota Vikings secondary. And I also think that right now the Vikings still have to figure it out. I know Cam Akers looks like he's gonna be playing this week. They don't have a run game. They're going to be very one-dimensional. The way that Kansas City has looked defensively, I think they're going to be able to pin their ears back and get after Kirk Cousins. So I like the Chiefs to cover those 4 points in that game. Second game I like, Ravens at Steelers. Give me under 38 in that one. I think this is to me, I think it lines up to be just one of those ugly, just AFC North, just showdown kind of games. Obviously, the Steelers are struggling offensively. They only put up 7 points against the Houston Texans last week. And for the Ravens, they're still struggling to get healthy. Yes, they played phenomenal against that Browns team last week, but they are still struggling to get healthy. You know, Ronnie Stanley's not playing. Odell's still out. So they're missing a lot of pieces there. I do think that's going to be a lower scoring game. And I like the Ravens to win, but I like that under 38 there. In my last game, I'm going back to the well. I like Houston +2 at Atlanta. CJ Stroud has looked really well so far throughout this season. Atlanta does play better at home, but the common denominator, at least the last 2 weeks, has been Desmond Ridder stinks. And I think Houston's going to be able to get after the quarterback and make Desmond Ridder, throw passes that are, have to beat you. And I don't think he's capable of doing that. And so I like CJ Stroud. He hasn't been turning the ball over. I think he's going to give Houston a great chance to go into Atlanta and win that football game outright.
Charlie.
All right, so the first game I'm going to start with is the game that Cottrell just talked about, and I am on the same side as he is. I like Houston +2 going in Atlanta. I do know Atlanta plays better at home.
Lost you, Bill. Can't hear you. Yeah, you're like on mute right now. I can't hear you. You can't hear him, right, Cottrell?
I cannot.
Okay. So I think that the world just wanted us to catch up on picks. But go ahead, Shally, can you talk now? Are you good? Nope, still nothing.
Nope, still
So I think the world just wanted us to catch up on picks. So they wanted to sabotage Shally. This is the whole goal, is to sabotage Shally so he cannot catch up and pick him. I go 3-0. I pass him and wins, and then I start going last again.
No, you can't go 3-0. You got to go 2-1 this
You're going
week.
to go 2-1 because you're going to be wrong about the Minnesota game.
No, I gotta be right there. So you got to go 2-1. I got to go 3-0. Bill's already agreed with me with Houston, so he's only going to pick up one game, and then we're going to be in a good spot.
All right, so we'll get back to obviously pick 'em second segment in a minute when Shally gets back. He was obviously dominating a golf tournament today, which is why he's had so many issues. Here he comes. Hopefully, we can get some volume out of him. Shally, here he is.
Yes, you are here.
All right, so I'm going with Houston. D'Amico Ryans got the defense coached up, aggressive. I agree with Cottrell. They're going to get after Desmond Ridder. They're going to make Desmond Ridder throw the ball downfield to beat them. I don't see that happening. I like Houston +2 in Atlanta. I'm going to go with one of the other games you guys already mentioned as well. I'm taking the Jets +1.5 at Denver. I think Zach Wilson maybe turns the corner a little bit here, the way he finished the game the other night. And listen, they're going to be up for that game. I think that game is going to be very chippy. I think there's going to be a lot of trash talk in that game. This game has been circled for a long time. Obviously, it's a little bit different now with Aaron Rodgers not under center for the Jets. But that being said, I think the Jets go in there, clamp down on D. I think Zach Wilson makes enough play against a Denver's defense that is just falling apart at the seams by the week right now. They can't stop anybody. I think the Jets go in there. I would actually think they win outright, but I'll take the +1.5 at Denver for the Jets. Last game is the game we already talked about, game of the week. San Francisco -3.5 at home. I like San Francisco. I think they cover it. I think it's a close game. I think it's probably something like 27-20, 27-21, something like that. I think it's a good game, but I think San Francisco is just a better football team. I don't trust Dak Prescott. I don't think enough people are talking about it. I like San Francisco to cover at home. So those are my 3 for the week.
All right, well, let's get college football time. Guys, don't bring up Matt Canada because I have something for him. Let's get into college football. So we got a couple games in the docket this week. As always, I'll pass it over to the collegiate one himself to introduce them. College Cottrell, which game do you want to start with this week?
All right, so let's start with our appetizer, as you like to say, Kentucky at Georgia.
I'm going to say something very clear here. Georgia is no longer the best team in the nation. They haven't been the best team in the nation, and you can tell it every time watching them. They're not the best team in the nation. Could they get there eventually by the time the playoff rolls around? Sure. I think Georgia wins this football game because it's in Georgia, but don't get it twisted. I think Kentucky will keep this game close. Georgia is not dominating anyone. The one thing they do have is a special tight end by the name of Brock Bowers. That kid's elite. I think they find a way to make plays. They win the game. I would feel zero confidence betting them minus 14.5. I'll take Georgia to win this game. Give me like a 31-21 affair. I'll go Georgia.
I kind of agree with Gene. Not with everything, but the way the game. I thought 14.5 was a big number for the way Georgia's been playing. Obviously, they're at home in Athens. They're going to play a little bit better. But Kentucky has a game that kind of travels. They want to run the ball. If they can run the ball and kind of take the air out of the stadium and take long drives down the field and put points on the board, I think this becomes a very tricky game for Georgia. I'm not ready to say Georgia's going to lose at home to Kentucky because I think that would be a monumental upset. I think this game is a lot closer than all the Georgia fans would like to admit that it's probably going to be. I'll go Georgia 31, Kentucky 24.
Kentucky's definitely been running the ball well, and I agree with you, Bill, that is something that can transfer over. You got Ray Davis has been, their lead back, and he's been taking care of business. Other thing is that they got NC State transfer Devin Leary there, a guy who I was super high on last year. He's a vet. He's played in big games, so he knows what it's like to go and play on a stage like this. But I will say I got Georgia in this one. I don't think this game will particularly be close. Do I think Kentucky can score and make it, give you reason to keep watching? Absolutely. But I don't see this being the one where Georgia slips up. Last week on Coast to Coast, I said that Auburn game would be a little tricky. It was Georgia's first road game of the season. And I knew Auburn, the way that they were playing, I thought they had a chance to keep it very competitive with Georgia. I don't quite see that this game. I think Devin Leary is gonna turn the ball over against that Georgia Bulldogs defense. And will they cover that 14.5? I think probably, but I don't think Georgia's ever in doubt of losing this football game.
It's fair. Introduce the second one, brother.
Second one, we got probably, your SE West championship game. You got Bama at Texas A&M.
So you guys, I think you'll love my pick here. I got A&M to win this game outright. Backup quarterback or no backup quarterback, College Station is not a place that Alabama wants to be. Give me A&M. I'll take A&M outright. I don't even need the 2 points. I think A&M wins the football game. I don't think Alabama can move the ball that well offensively versus any good defense. I have zero faith in their offense. I think this is a down year for Alabama. I think the 2-point spread tells you everything you need to know. Give me A&M outright.
This game is very interesting to me. You look at the spread, like Gene said, it tells you one thing. Them losing their starting quarterback, Connor Wiggman, I think is a little bit more devastating than they'd like to lead on. Cottrell did call they weren't going to miss a beat last week, with their backup quarterback. They were also playing Arkansas. They're going to play an Alabama defense that's playing better and better by the week. I still don't have really faith in Jalen Milroe to consistently move that ball against Texas A&M's defense in College Station. I think this is, we've all across the board agreed that this is not a typical Alabama team. It's not a typical Alabama year. I don't think they're that good overall. I think they've been getting by with the skin of their teeth. I think they go into College Station as well, and I think they lose. I think this puts the stamp on, the end of any kind of postseason play for Nick Saban. I think Jimbo gets a win, but I don't think it's going to matter because I don't think A&M has any aspirations down the road either this year. But I do think Texas A&M pulls off the upset. I think this is their Super Bowl this weekend.
So I told you guys before the year that I had Texas A&M going to the SEC championship game. And, the way you have to do that is by beating an Alabama team. And I think right now, with the way that A&M defense has been playing, they are going to make Jalen Milroe very uncomfortable. You could talk about the Miami game and how great Tyler Van Dyke looked. Right now, Texas A&M leads the country as a team in total sacks. So they're getting after the quarterback. And I don't want to just erase that game, but as a whole, Texas A&M has a top 10 defense in the country. Those young kids are getting after the quarterback and making plays defensively. And then offensively, they're in a situation where they had a backup quarterback in Max Johnson who has some experience playing the position and playing in games. So He knows what it's like to play against Alabama. He used to be at LSU, so he knows what that environment's going to be like. For Jalen Milroe, this is probably going to be his toughest game to date. Yes, they lost to Texas, but that was a home game. Now you have to travel to College Station with that insane crowd there. And so I do think that he's going to struggle. I think early on, you're going to see Nick Saban try to keep the game plan simple and really just, try to make sure Jalen Milroe doesn't lose them the football game. But ultimately, I think, Jalen Milroe is going to turn the ball over, and I got A&M winning that game outright.
Okay. That's all three. That's a sweep, which means Bama by 40. I'm just kidding. We would have one or two more, Cottrell.
We got one more. We got the meat and potatoes.
Can't wait for this one.
We got the Red River rivalry, guys. You got Oklahoma versus Texas at the Cotton Bowl, 12 versus 3.
Isn't it a shame that this game's on at noon?
I love it, personally.
I'd rather have it either in prime. Well, they never play it in prime time, so they're not going to do that.
We're having it at 4 o'clock.
I'd rather have it in the 3:30 time slot. But to some degree, I don't mind starting my day off with that game, which is what I think Cottrell's probably going to say.
Yep.
So I'm all right with it. It's a traditionally noon kick, so they're going to kick it. It's 11 o'clock Dallas time. So, yeah.
Say a couple of things about this game. First and foremost, last year Texas beat them 49-0. However, they did it last year without Dylan Gabriel playing quarterback for Oklahoma. He's back this year, and you want to talk about a guy that's a Heisman candidate? This guy is playing out of his mind. That's what makes this game so good. You have two very good quarterbacks playing at elite levels, Texas versus Oklahoma. There's a lot of people that were on that team last year from Oklahoma that are coming back after losing 49-0, and I guarantee you this game will not be anywhere close to the type of blowout that was. So I think that, when you get beat up like that, you remember that. You remember that for a long time. I think this is going to be a very good football game. The Texas 6.5 spread, that's one of those spreads that wants you to bet on Texas. That's an enticing Texas spread. I'm going to give you a little handle on how you can understand spreads. 2.5, 6.5, 9.5, they're trying to get you to bet the favorite. 3.5, 7.5, 10.5, they're trying to get you to bet the dog. That's the most important things that you should understand about betting sports, period. With that being said, I think this is a very close game, but I think Texas ultimately wins this football game. I have them winning it in a very high-scoring fashion. I think it'll be 42-38 Texas. I think they go trade blows back and forth. I think it's 42-31 at one point. I think Oklahoma scores late to make it 42-38 and just cannot stop Texas from getting that one first down before they can kneel it out. I think Texas ultimately wins the football game. I think it's a super high-scoring game. Give me Texas 42, Oklahoma 38.
Not gonna lie, Gene. I think that's the best college football game preview you've ever done. I think you hit on a bunch of things that people aren't talking about. Obviously, this game is circled on both teams' calendars every year. But like you said, there's a lot of kids on this Oklahoma roster last year that were part of that 49-0 beating, which I still believe is the worst loss ever in the history of this rivalry. This rivalry is great, and I'll say this because there's been huge upsets in this rivalry a lot. I think you look at it as good as Ohio State or Michigan is, or some of the other rivalries in college football. Most of the time, the better team wins. There's an upsets once in a while. There's always close games. It's heated, it's hated, and so forth and so on. There's been times where Texas has been ranked in the top 10 and Oklahoma's not ranked. Oklahoma destroys them, and vice versa. This is a very emotional game for these two schools. It is the last time that it's guaranteed to be played every year. I know they're going to try to protect it when they move next year. That hasn't been ironed out yet. So they're going to be playing for keeps on Saturday. And I think your preview was spot on. These games tend to be high scoring. Dylan Gabriel is back. He's healthy. He's playing at a very high level. He's finally caught on to playing the quarterback level, at a very high level as a quarterback in his 7th year in college. I'm happy for him to finally figure that out. But I see it just like Gene. I think Texas wins by 3 or 4 points. I think it's close. onside kick. Maybe Oklahoma has the ball, maybe runs out of time, misses a field goal or something. I think it's going to be a great football game on Saturday. I really do. I think it's going to be body blow after body blow until somebody just can't get up.
Just because you're listening, Shucky, we already previewed this game, but just because you're listening, we'll answer for you one more time. I have the Cowboys winning the game outright, and Cottrell and Bill both have the 49ers. You can listen back, though, after the show's episode, or download us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or iHeartRadio to get the full breakdown.
Good plug. Look at you. You're on your game tonight.
Oh, yeah. No, you're good. No need to be sorry. But Cottrell, what do you think in the Red River rivalry?
So I think the one thing that is rather interesting about this Oklahoma team is that they are playing great defense. Now you can talk about the people who they've played so far, and I get it. They don't have any world beaters so far through their schedule, but they haven't even had a game where it was close to being a slip up at this point. Defense is averaging, only giving up, less than 11 points a game at this point. Dillon Gabriel, as you guys both mentioned, has been playing phenomenal so far this year. And on the other side of things for Texas, their offense, they have that ability to just flip a switch whenever they want to. You could talk about, them having a couple scares here and there, but once that offense wants to turn it on, they absolutely can. And I think the one thing that's been very impressive about that Texas team is that, the games that Xavier Worthy has played well, obviously the offense has looked great. But even the games where they're not finding ways to get him the ball, the offense still hasn't sputtered at all. And I think that that's very important for that Texas team. Now, with that said, I have Texas going to the college football playoff. I think they're ultimately going to end up being the 3 seed. I don't think they go the entire season as an undefeated team. And if they lose a game, it has to be this one. And so I got Oklahoma winning this game. I think they rebound. I think this is a matchup that you're going to see again for the Big 12 championship. And ultimately, I think that's going to be the determining factor about which team gets into the college football playoff. But I got Oklahoma making amends from last year, getting after Quinn Ewers, making his life a little bit more tough. And I think this is going to be a really tight game. I see it exactly the same, Bill. I think this is going to be, one of those 3-4 point games, but I think Oklahoma is going to be on the right side of victory come Saturday.
That's bold.
Pache just dropped the ball in left field to give the Marlins the leadoff double in the third inning, 0-0. Sorry, just needed to add that. But
it's funny because everybody downstairs just screams, so I figured something happened, and that would be what it was.
So the biggest thing I want to kind of add to this is what you said, Cottrell, and I just want to add to this. I think that Texas ultimately wins the game, but they're going to win the more important game, which would be the Big 12 championship when they play again. I think they're on a crash course to play each other twice this year.
Yep.
With that being said, though, Oklahoma's average margin of victory is 48 to 10.9. That's what their scores are. 48 to 10.9. That's their average game. Now that has a 73-0 game in there. So that kind of helps that number a little bit, but they haven't allowed a team to score 21. The highest score they had against them was Iowa State, who dropped 20. And that was a game that was a blowout.
And that's a testament to Brett Venables and what he wants to do. Obviously, he's a defensive-minded coach. And last year, Oklahoma struggled defensively. And so I think it's important to realize that these guys have had, a second year to be in that system with Brent and really understand it. So obviously this is going to be their toughest test to date, and it's not even going to be close. Like they haven't, gone up against any other high-powered offense to this point. So we will have to see them really get battle tested there. But I think they're locked in. And again, we're on the same page. Texas is going to win the important one. But I don't see
him going undefeated. I get it.
I can't see him going undefeated.
And if they're going to lose, this is the game they're going to lose.
Yep.
Understood. All right, let's get into college football pick'em. Before we get into pick'em, right? You can throw the records up there. My 7-8. Yuck. Superdog record looks a little better, but 7-8 kind of stinks. So I'm going to fix that this week for you guys at home. I'm going to be 11. I'm going to be 10-8 after this week. I'm going 6-0. I'm sweeping college and NFL. And if I don't do that, the rest of the season's free. You don't have to pay $1 rest of the season. But let's get into it. Cottrell or Chally, you're in the lead. You get to pick the order again, my friend.
We'll do the same. I definitely can't go first because I got to check my picks. So we'll go. Actually, yeah, we'll go Cottrell, Gene, and then myself.
All right, so I have 3 picks, and I have a great super dog. I'm sorry, Cottrell, Gene. Yeah, Cottrell.
All right, so
same order. I was preparing like NFL. I was getting ready.
He said same. Then he fixed it. You know,
Audible,
never know with Bill.
JT just hose somebody at third. Hose the guy at third base. Let's go. Sorry, I'm hyped, guys. I'm hyped. JT's a hose, bro.
Red October. I get it. But my first pick this week, I got the under 63.5 Arkansas at Ole Miss. I know a lot of people are thinking Ole Miss just dropped 55 points against LSU. This game has over written all over it. I think you also have to realize that that's going to be, I think this is going to be more of an emotional letdown for Ole Miss. They won that game last week, thriller. I think Arkansas is going to play them, a little bit tighter. I think this game can have the ability to be close. But on the other side of things, I don't think Arkansas has that big play ability to just go, blow for blow with that Ole Miss team. Can KJ Jefferson put the ball in the end zone? Absolutely. But I also think that, he's going to turn the ball over. And I think this isn't not necessarily going to be a lower scoring game, but I think it's going to be a game where Ole Miss is in control. I see it being like 31-14, 31-17, something along the lines of that. And, I think that under 63.5 is going to be pretty safe. Second game I like Kansas -2.5 at home versus UCF. Again, I know exactly what Vegas wants you to do here, but I also think for UCF, they're in a spot going up against this Kansas team where they just lost last week, backup quarterback playing. I do think Jalen Daniels will come back, and I think, ultimately Kansas is going to look better offensively. Obviously, last week they struggled with Texas, and they really couldn't put up points on the board. Against UCF, that's going to be a completely different animal. So I think Kansas will be perfectly fine in that game. And then, you also got to realize that UCF is coming off of one of the biggest blown leads of recent memory. Losing the game where you're up 28 on Baylor, completely unheard of. I think they're going to fight, but I got Kansas covering that spread there. Then my last game is one that we already talked about. I like Texas A&M plus 1.5 at home versus Bama. We already gave the full breakdown there, so I won't go too far in depth here, but I think Texas A&M wins that game outright, so only makes sense to pick them here. My last game, my super dog for the week, I got UMass plus 19.5 at home versus Toledo. Toledo's a team that has been playing to their competition all season long. Their only loss to this point was a 2-point loss to Illinois. But last week, they were in a barn burner with Northern Illinois, who has an absolutely horrible football team. So I think Toledo's going to travel up to Massachusetts. They're going to play to the level of that UMass team. They're going to win the game because they're the better team. But I do think that's going to be a game where UMass keeps it within a possession or two.
That was my loss last week.
Well, I got 3 for you with a super dog. I think this first game is the lock of the century. I was wrong on them last week, and I will not be wrong on them again this week. I'll take Notre Dame -6.5 at Louisville. Look, I'm going to make something very clear to you. That Notre Dame defense is for real. Every single team that they went against, they've held them low scoring, including the high-powered Ohio State and Riley Leonard of Duke. So every single, just my personal opinion, Notre Dame is going to hold Louisville down. And I'll tell you this, I don't think their offense gets slowed down one bit by Louisville. I think Notre Dame wins this one. I think it's not that close. So I'll take Notre Dame -6.5. I think it'll be over by halftime. You won't have to worry about it. Second one on the docket. This is an upset, but it's not an upset based off the point spread. Think of it this way. Why is UCLA a 3.5-point favorite over Wazoo? Washington State's ranked. They're the better team. What is Vegas trying to get you to do? They're trying to get you to bet on Washington State plus the points. I'll take UCLA -3.5 at UCLA. I think they crush Washington State's dreams of being into a Pac-12 championship game. Next game on the docket. This is a pretty easy one by me. I don't know why. I feel like the spread is playing with me. This is probably the one I'll end up losing. I'll take UNC -8.5 over Syracuse. I don't see a reason or any way why UNC can't beat them by 20 points. Yellow 9, but I'll take UNC minus 8.5 over Syracuse. Every one of their wins have been by 10 points or more. So give me UNC minus 8.5 over Syracuse. And for my super dog, I got a fun one for you this week. I don't know what the spreads makers were doing with this one. And I think I understand it a little bit. USC is a very trendy team. They're a very good team. They score a lot of points, but they can't stop anyone. You watched it happen last week. Colorado got within 7 points of them. I just watched this Arizona team take Washington to the brink. I get it. It wasn't that close as the score determined, 31-24. I think Washington's better than USC. I think Arizona keeps it within 21.5 of USC. I'll take Arizona plus the 21.5 points over USC. That's my picks this week.
Gene, I think the one game that's very interesting that you brought up, and I almost used it, that UCLA game, home versus Washington State. I think you're going to be all over that game because there was a similar matchup in the Pac-12 just, last week when you had Utah, Oregon State 3.5, and everybody's like Utah, all over Utah, and you saw what happened. So I think that is a great pick, and that was like literally the last one I ended up cutting off on my pick 'em.
All right. Well, I'm sharing games one each with both of you. So you guys are obviously starting to see what I'm doing and why I'm picking so hot. You guys are picking up on the pattern here. So I'm going to start with this one. Notre Dame minus 6.5 at Louisville. Everything Gene told you is correct. Louisville's ranked 25th this week for the sole purpose Notre Dame has another ranked win at the end of the year on the resume. That's it. They have no business being ranked 25th. They don't play defense, and that offense ain't scoring on Notre Dame. Gene said it'll be over at halftime. Gene's correct. Notre Dame, big. I'll take Notre Dame minus 6.5. Second game, I agree with Cottrell. Ole Miss minus 10.5 against Arkansas. I think this is a gimme. I think as long as Ole Miss comes out and doesn't have a hangover from their big win against LSU, Arkansas playing their backup quarterback, Ole Miss is, Jackson Dart, we've talked about Ole Miss and their offense is rolling right now. I like Ole Miss big at home in the Grove. My last pick, I got Liberty minus 18.5 against Sam Houston State. You want to know why? I don't know crap about Liberty, so I'm not even going to pretend to know anything about them. But I do know this. Sam Houston State might be the worst team in Division I. They are 0-4. They give up 38 points on average a game, and they don't score. They average a little over 200 yards of total offense a game. This one might bite me in the ass. I don't know. Because I didn't do a ton of research on it because I don't know anything about either team. But I'm going with Liberty minus 18.5. I think they cover. I think it's a blowout. For my super dog this week, it's going to upset one of the hosts a little bit. But that being said, I'm going to go with it anyway. I'm going to go Maryland plus 19.5 against Ohio State. I don't think Ohio State is ever in danger of losing this football game. I think Ohio State is the better football team. I just think as good as Maryland's playing, their defense is sneaky good, and their offense can move the ball. I think they'll have success against Ohio State to some degree. I think they score enough points to keep themselves in the game. I just think almost 3 touchdowns is a lot. When this game first came out, I thought it was going to be around 12.5, 13.5. It's up to 19.5. I think it's too much. I'll go Maryland plus 19.5. But I ultimately agree. I think Ohio State wins the game. But those are my 3 for the week.
I want to ask you guys a quick question real quick, and it has to do with this game. Why didn't the AP or whoever makes the top 25 pool rank Maryland instead of Louisville? Like, when I look at that, I think Maryland's a better team than Louisville. Maryland's 5-0, Louisville's 5-0. But when you break down Louisville's wins versus Maryland's wins, Maryland looks more impressive to me. Am I wrong by saying that?
No, not at all. I think if you put Maryland and Louisville on the same field or a neutral field, I think Maryland wins 7 or 8 out of 10 times.
I don't disagree. I do think Maryland is the better football team here. You compare their resumes, I think they're very similar. I mean, we talked a couple weeks ago about NC State being Notre Dame's best win. NC State is probably Louisville's best win, but Maryland's best win is probably Michigan State. I think those are very comparable wins. Like, I think they're splitting hairs there. And I do think that for Notre Dame, like you said, Bill, they want to get them another ranked win just to throw them back in the mix later on.
Schwarbs, baby. 1-0 Phillies. Double. Sorry. I got to stop. We got to get back to the show.
I will say too, Bill, you said you don't know anything about, you know why Sam Houston State stinks? They're a Division I AA school that just moved up to FBS. So this is their first year.
I like first year.
That's why they stink right now. Give them some time.
Yo,
they were dominant.
Fitzgerald knows everything.
They were dominant on the FCS level.
Who's Houston State's head coach? You know,
I don't know their head coach, but I do.
I wouldn't be shocked if you knew like the wide receiver coach.
Sam Houston State was in contention for a FCS championship within the last 3 years. Like they were a dominant FCS school. They just went and joined, I think, was it the Sun Belt or one of those, like
probably one of them down
Conference
there,
Sky, something like that. But they're still new. That's why they suck right now. They're going to get there though. They run a good program over there.
It's not nobody worse than Kent State.
Facts.
They're bad, bro.
I was looking at them for Superdog. I'm like, I think Miami Ohio beats them by 25.
When does Kent State play Northern Illinois?
Who knows? I don't even know. I
That's
haven't even kept up with them. They stink this year.
Yeah.
There's an Ohio State fan when Kent State's not good.
They desperately miss Sean Lewis for sure.
Yeah.
I know we're at the end of the show here. I did have just three quick questions.
Reactions.
For you guys.
I want it.
College football. And I'll start with the first one just because we're still at that point right now. If every conference has an undefeated conference champion at the end of the year, we got 5 undefeated conference champions. Which team gets left out? Or which conference gets left out?
The ACC. I was didn't even take me time. The Pac-12 is ridiculous. If Georgia runs the table and is undefeated in the SEC, they can't not make the playoffs. If Michigan, Ohio State, or Penn State runs the table, they can't not make the playoffs. And Texas has already beaten Alabama. So there's no way I can argue Florida State over those. There's no way. I can't do it.
To the flip side of it, though, Gene, right now, UNC is still undefeated. Florida State has a win against LSU. And if Bama loses this week, how we all think that they will, they have a 2-loss. And so maybe that Bama win doesn't look as good for Texas. Like, I think the ACC is the team that you look at just because Texas is, Texas, they have the Longhorns. But
oh, my God, they would revolt the world if Texas didn't make the playoffs and went undefeated. It would be –
Texas will get in because it's because they have so many fans. It'll be good for college football. They're a blue blood program. I agree.
I think it's going to be tight.
I agree with you that it's probably the ACC. I would tell you though, kind of to Cottrell's point he just made. I think
I got news for you. The team that deserves not to make it would be Georgia. But
it is. I mean, it's a way closer discussion than I think people would be used to having because of SEC's dominance recently. It's not a good year for the SEC. I think it's a down year for the SEC.
If Penn State, Ohio State, or Michigan run the gauntlet, they're 100% making it.
They're in.
The Pac-12 is the best conference in football this year. It's incredible. They have 6 programs that are great. And then that's not adding Colorado. They got Oregon State, Washington, USC, Utah, Wazoo, Colorado. That's 7 solid football programs.
I agree. I mean, the Big Ten's got they have 3 teams in the top 7.
You're right, but that's it for the Big Ten.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I mean, well, all those teams in the Pac-12 are going to start playing each other too. So, I mean, they're all going to start taking L's soon.
No, but if someone ran the table in that conference,
agree.
They should be the one. They're not going to be, but they should be the one.
Yeah, I don't think they're on the table Pac-12.
That is a great segue because my next question was literally, is the Pac-12 the best conference in college football?
Absolutely.
Right now, yes.
They have 7 teams that are going to play the bowl games.
I get it. I get that. But as a whole, like there's 7 or, however high you want to go. Are you taking those teams to beat, some of these other conferences? Like, yes, they have 7,
I got news for you.
teams.
Washington walked on the field with Ohio State tomorrow at a neutral field. Washington beats them by a touchdown, and I don't think it's that close.
Oh, see. I don't know. I don't know about that one. Let's not forget Washington hasn't played anybody yet either.
I'm telling you, man. Michael Penix Jr.
We'll find out next week because you got Oregon Washington next week. So
Facts.
you'll find out real quick what both those teams are.
Neutral site games. I think the Pac-12 is the best conference in the country right now. I think I take their top 7 over any 7 in any conference, any way you slice it. And then the Big Ten would be second to me, followed by the SEC, the ACC, and then the Big 12, which I think is the worst conference. But the point of the matter is, even though they're the worst conference, you can't. If you held an undefeated Texas team out of the playoffs, they would revolt from the country. They'd be their own country. It'd be over. Like,
I mean, I think the other thing too that's kind of getting swept under the rug here is that as quiet as it's kept, the ACC has some teams that are taking care of business as well. Like UNC, you got Florida State, you got Miami, you got Louisville, you got Duke. Like, and that's not even getting too close.
Riley Leonard's out this week, though. He's out. He got sprained his ankle in that Notre Dame game. I think they win that football game because he sprained his ankle.
They could beat NC State.
That was a great game. That was a really fun game to watch. He doesn't sprain his ankle. I think they win that game.
I don't agree because that was literally the end of the game. So
he sprained his ankle in the last drive.
Yeah,
they were gonna score.
No, that was fourth down. That was it.
Oh, I thought he sprained his ankle earlier in the drive and then re-aggravated.
It was literally like the last play of the game for them.
Okay, I apologize. My apology. I thought it happened earlier in the drive and he re-aggravated it.
Nah.
My apologies.
He got rolled up on.
Let's get into pick. Oh, you got one more?
I got one more for you guys. Caleb Williams
through anyway.
Caleb Williams will stay in school and come out in 2025.
No, false. All those reports are BS. I wish I would have texted Alex when he posted that. It's a BS report. All BS. Caleb Williams is coming out this year. Stop it. Stop it.
I agree with you, but I will say if he goes to let's say it's a shit organization that's at 1, I can definitely see him just he's making a ton of money right now. I'm sure he has a ton of insurance plans already out on him. He's going to be the number 1 pick whenever he comes out. So
but I go back to this though. Like, what if you're picking 1? You're not going to a good situation immediately.
That's true.
So like, it doesn't matter if he comes out this year, next year, the year after. He's going to a team that just sucked the year before. Like that's where he's going to go. Like he's not going to it's not going to be a magical year where oh cool Miami didn't re-sign Tua. And they have the number 1 picks, and he'll be like, "Oh, I'll come out this year and just go to Miami, like a pro-ready team." Like it's not going to happen. He's going to some combination of the Raiders, the Giants, the Cardinals, the Bears, something like that.
I think the Raiders is the perfect organization for him.
That's where
if you go to Las Vegas, they fire Josh McDaniels, they marry a coach to him. I think that's the perfect situation. Right. You get Devontae Adams year 1.
Yeah,
you have a running back. Well, I don't think Jacobs is back there. It doesn't matter. I think that's a good.
Why did they draft Caleb Williams? I think that helps Josh Jacobs stay there.
It's fair.
But I guess to my counterpoint would be like, let's say we talked about it earlier, cold weather, warm weather, that kind of thing. If he realizes that Chicago is an absolutely awful organization, he feels like they've ruined Justin Fields, and he doesn't want to go play there. Is it not on the table for him?
No, but I think he can have those talks in the interview and make himself undraftable to them. If he has a conversation in an interview, this is how my interview would go. If Bears had the number 1 pick and number 1 and number 2, they could have both. If the Bears had number 1 pick and I interviewed with the organization because they're going to want to work me out, they're going to want to do whatever they're going to do, I would say to them, I'm like, who's going to be your head coach next year? What is your plans for success? And if I didn't like what I heard, I'm like, you can draft me all you want. I am not going to want to play for your organization. So you could waste the number 1 pick on me, and I would try to make myself undraftable.
I think that's a slippery slope, but I get what you're getting at.
Eli did it.
Facts.
Yeah.
It's not unheard of for players to force themselves out of situations they don't want. Would you want to play for the McCaskey family? I wouldn't. I want to shout out Jay McCune. Jay McCune, thank you so much for the comments, man. I see you in the chat. I didn't get a chance to read your comments out loud, but I appreciate the comments, man. Thank you.
I wouldn't want to play for the Bears either, but I also do feel like Caleb Williams is one of those guys who Joel Klatt said it last week. He felt like there's 18 teams that Caleb Williams can go out and make them a better team, tomorrow. So at this point, you're viewing him as this generational talent. I don't care how you interview you. I'm going to draft you no matter what, because I know if I have to trade you, then I will. But I'm going to get something crazy in return for it. But I also can't pass up on the chance to get what a lot of people think might be the next Patrick Mahomes.
Agreed.
Let's get into college football, pick'em.
We did college football.
We did.
Oh, my bad. So let's get into you got to be kidding me. Sorry. Cottrell, start us off.
So my you got to be kidding me. I really don't have one this week. Something else that I want to touch on. I'll wait till we get done with the show. We go over our final thoughts or whatever. Don't really have one this week. No one really grinded my gears this week, so I don't even want to reach and go after anybody.
There's too many. There's too many this week. Go ahead, Charlie.
Not for me.
I didn't really have a good one either, but I have one now. My you got to be kidding me this week is my Wi-Fi connection tonight, because it's been awful. It's been interrupting this show. I appreciate both you guys continuing to just seamlessly move on with the show. I don't know what the hell happened. I will be back in my normal spot next week, so I apologize to everybody else, but I have to give my co-host all the credit in the world for not letting the distraction of me coming in and out of the show at least 20 times at this point distract them, and we still put on a kick-ass show. So kudos to you guys. And my Wi-Fi connection is my you gotta be kidding me this week.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
Okay, so I'm going to touch on one because I figured one of you guys would touch on it. The fact that Emmanuel Forbes received death threats after Sunday, and the fact that he had a breakdown, he was crying on the sideline during the A.J. Brown situation when A.J. Brown placed the ball on him, and he got burned Sunday. He got beat by A.J. Brown Sunday. Is a joke, man. This is a rookie cornerback. Like, come on, guys. You're sending death threats to a guy that's competing with one of the top 5 wide receivers in football. He competed with him all day, played hard-nosed with him all day. Yeah, he got beat on a couple double moves. Kid's got a bright future. I'm really sick to my stomach over it. So that's one of my you got to be kidding me. That's not the real one. Second, there's so many this week. But this one takes the cake. And I don't care if it's a rumor, and I don't care if the rumor's been debunked. I believe it. I think that the rumor being debunked is an absolute joke. Okay? So I don't know if you guys have read this anywhere, but there's a Twitter account, an X account, whatever we want to call it right now. It's called Danny Football 77. And if you read the replies on this account, you can realize that this is a Matt Canada burner account. This is exactly what this is. Let's not pretend it's anything different. When they hit reset email, it said m blah, 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 at p blah, 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 blah.com. Now, Steelers personnel came out and said, no, it's his last name, not his first name, at pittsburghsteelers.nfl.com. That's his work email address. He put his damn work email address as the recovery account for the Twitter. If you read it, I'm serious, go read it. Some of the things that he said where he was taking comments about how he doesn't get George Pickens involved. He goes, well, Matt Canada gets George Pickens involved plenty, and he did a great job, and he's got just as many targets as CeeDee Lamb. And then they said the one common denominator in Pittsburgh for all these offensive coordinators that are bad is Mike Tomlin. And like he's taking shots at Mike Tomlin, but the whole account has 0 followers, 0 anything. And the only thing the account has is replies defending Matt Canada. It's a Matt Canada burner account, 100%. The Steelers should get a you got to be kidding me for not firing this guy. It's unbelievable how he's still an offensive coordinator, but that's besides the point. For you to create a Twitter and then take shots at your own teammates, your own coaches on Twitter is beyond me. I can't even understand and fathom how that's real. Matt Canada needs to be gone. Let him go. Make him an offensive assistant over in some college football program. I don't want the guy not to have a job, but he should have an NFL job as offense coordinator. The team has went backwards. Najee Harris backwards. Kenny Pickett backwards. George Pickens, which everyone sees is a star in the making, has not improved. This is you got to be kidding me times 100. And for that reason, Matt Canada.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
That was an epic rant.
I mean, one that I kind of thought about, I kind of want to wait until there's more that comes out on it, was Jamal Adams. Jamal Adams and his blow up on the sideline after they wrote him out with the concussion, him blowing up on the doctor on the sidelines. But I kind of understand it, hasn't played football in forever, games being taken away from him again. So that's ultimately why I didn't decide to use that. I know the NFL is talking about taking some action against him for how he conducted himself on the sidelines. I just think that's not necessary. He was caught up in the moment. And if he's not good enough to go out there, if he's not healthy enough to go out there and play football anymore, you can't blame him for not being in his right mind at that point, especially if he had a concussion.
Oh, I wanted to add one more thing, guys. If you guys haven't touched on it yet, I'm going to touch on it right now. The Trevor Bauer situation. How no one's brought that up yet is beyond me. Trevor Bauer released all that information. All you have to Google is Trevor Bauer, and you can see all the reports that you want. The Major League Baseball Association is going to get sued so badly. And it sounds like from everything that Trevor Bauer is not a bad guy at all. And I think everybody that trashed this man without getting the facts and getting what really happened out there owes this man an apology. Go on Twitter at this man and apologize, because it's a joke what ended up happening in this guy's career. 2 years he hadn't been able to play baseball because he's been sued by a gold digger who literally said, "Who's my next victim?"
You're definitely right there. I will say the one thing with Bauer that didn't do him any favors is that he'd kind of had this reputation of being an asshole before that, just doing dumb things and people just not liking him to begin with.
So that personality is loud, and because his personality is in your face,
I'm not saying that's the reason. I mean, I'm not saying that's why. Like, you shouldn't.
One of the worst things that can ever happen to a person is what he got accused of, and he lost his job, and the public opinion is, oh, because he's an asshole. Oh well.
I'm just saying that's why people didn't give him sympathy in that moment, and they were like, "Yeah, like we knew he was a bad guy," and that's all I'm saying.
I get it, but that's not fair.
I think people kind of like Gene said, they didn't get the facts, and then they didn't like them, and then it came out, and like you said, then it turned into, I told you so. This is exactly what he was, and I think it was crazy that he got shamed for sticking up for himself. And they were like, "Oh, now he's victim shaming." He's like, no, like he wasn't victim shaming anybody. He called them liars from the get-go, and he's got receipts beyond belief.
That woman should be in jail.
I think the worst part of this for me is ESPN, Fox, NBC Sports. Everybody was quick to throw this dude straight under the bus. They wrote these huge articles. The Washington Post went digging and dug up another chick that they had to end up retracting that. He's still suing them. Not one of them the other day. You couldn't find a story on anybody's website about what happened. Not one. I looked on all of them. You couldn't find, Trevor Bauer's accuser ends up being a liar, so forth and so on. They didn't even have the balls to print that. Not an apology to anybody or anything. It's a joke, man. It's I'm not gonna get into politics stuff, but it's just woke media at its finest.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. And JT just hit a home run to make it 3-0 Phillies.
JT.
I just look, and we'll wrap the show up right there. But I just think that if you make an accusation like that, and you turn out to be lying, and you cost a man 2 years of his career, you should be in jail. And he said it. He said, I know I can't get any money. I know I can't even get the money I spent on lawyers.
No, yeah, you're not gonna get anything out of her.
But he said he sued her to get the information that her lawyer had that was hiding from the courts. He's like, I just wanted my receipts. I wanted to prove what I knew was right. She should be in jail.
They need to start changing it, because I think it helps the women that are legitimately abused come forward knowing that
100%
people are going to believe them, and I think it discourages this crap. If you get caught lying, a shadow of doubt did not happen like this situation is, your ass is going to jail. So if you think that's worth a $50,000 payoff you're going to get from some famous actor or athlete or something like that, good luck. Go spend 2 or 3 years
trying to settle, and he wouldn't settle. He maintained his innocence. And I'll put it this way, right? if anyone's listening that wants to do this, as soon as Trevor Bauer signs on to a baseball team, I don't care if it's the Mets. I'm buying his damn jersey. I'm supporting this man. I'm done. This is a joke what happened to him. I don't care what his personality is. That doesn't deserve to happen to anybody that didn't harm someone.
No, I agree. I think it's a damn shame. There's that famous kid, Cottrell. You probably know his name because you remember all this stuff with college. But there was a kid that signed a full ride to go to Florida State, I believe. High school girlfriend. They broke up because he's like, I'm going to campus, like blah blah blah. Accused him of rape, was found guilty, spent 6 years in prison, and it only got overturned. He still wouldn't have been out, but he's out now. But it only got overturned because she was in some like group chat or like online chat room or something, and she admitted that she made the whole thing up, and they let him out. And this kid was like a 4 or 5 star like running back. Like he had his whole life in front of him. Kid was going to go to Florida State, probably be a stud, get drafted. She's taken she took his football career, his money, everything from him.
Hey, what about Matt Ariza? You're talking about another guy. It's not in the NFL, and he was drafted. That's how good of a punter he was. Yeah. Guys, it's just too many of these situations happening. I'm sorry. We're ending the show, a great show, on a somber note, but I just needed to put that out there because we are here to bring you all the information. Any final thoughts, gentlemen?
I got one, and it's one that I'm sure that Bill's going to appreciate. Gene, you might as well. But we got the WNBA finals kicking off here this upcoming Sunday. We got the New York Liberty going up against the Las Vegas Aces. It's been a matchup that the Liberty have dominated in the regular season so far, but Vegas is your defending champs, and it's going to be a great matchup. It's funny because me and Bill, we've talked about it pretty much all season that, I had a futures with the Liberty winning the championship. Bill's got the Aces. So this is the matchup we both saw coming all along. But I think this will be a great one, especially because you got Stewie with the Liberty MVP this year. And then, of course, Asia Wilson holding it down for the Aces. So be a great series. If you don't watch WNBA, this is a great series to start watching. Right?
It's like the World Cup final with watching Mbappe and Messi in that World Cup final. Like, if you're not a big soccer, this is the time to watch it. Like,
facts.
You're not a big WNBA, this is the time. These are the two teams that actually look like
professional.
Yeah,
careful. But yeah, these are the two teams that are supposed to be here. It's going to be a very high level, basketball series. You got star power everywhere. You already mentioned Stewie and Asia Wilson. I mean, you got Brianna and SQ. There's stars everywhere on both sides of the court. It will be a very fun series to watch. And me or Cottrell, one's going to be happy and one's going to be sad.
Well, shout out to Jay McCune, Cy again. My man Paul Gravitt in the chat. There's plenty of people in the chat tonight, but you guys were on fire tonight. Petey had like 100 comments in a row. Shout out to Petey, Steven Chambers, everybody over at Sports Empire Network, Black Elmore, Chris Hardy, tons of people I can mention. I can mention them. I got one final thought, and it's go Phillies. Hopefully this time next week, we're talking about the Phillies having an opportunity to close out the Atlanta Braves. So without further ado, we will end the show. And I'm the NFL genius, Gene Walzak. That's College Cottrell. That's Uncle Shally. And we are signing out.